right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Show this out, show this out, show this out. All right, everybody, it's Friday night. The Law of One. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right, let me take down this overlay here. Show this out. Wait a minute. Wrong place for the overlay. Where's my overlay? There it is. No, that's the background. Hold on. I got to get to the overlay and take that down. There we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. Brooke, welcome. Share this out. Tag everybody. Thank you for doing that. Tag everybody. Get them in here. Let me put myself up into full screen. We don't need to be looking at that. So there was a new pope. Let's talk about that for a minute. Okay. There was a new pope elected. Pope Leo the 14th. Right. Some would say he's the last pope. If you listen to prophecy, he's the last pope. He's the pope that is Reese. Welcome. If you go by prophecy, he's the last pope. That means he's the pope that is in control by the Antichrist. The Antichrist is supposed to be in control of this pope. If it is prophecy, we'll find out what's going on with this pope as time goes on. Weird that he took Pope Leo the 14th. We'll see what happens with him. An American pope. Now, I'm Roman Catholic. I am knighted by the Roman Catholic Church, and I'm a Christian minister. I'm an ordained minister as well. The topic of conversation in the United States has always been there will never be a pope from the United States because the United States, even the Roman Catholic Church in the United States, is too liberal for the Roman Catholic Church in Italy. Well, this guy was born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Okay. So he's an American pope, weirdly. And he chose Leo the 14th. So we'll see what happens there. Cassie, welcome. Reese, welcome. Right, show this out. Get everybody in here. Right, tag everybody. Get them in here. Thank you. Cassie's tagging people. Brooke is tagging people. Rock that out. Get some people in here. Okay, so it's Friday night. It's the Law of One. I'm not going to go on all of that prophecy that it has to do with the Pope. But there was a Pope 400 and some odd years ago that foretold of all these popes. And that the last pope is this pope, according to this one pope hundreds of years ago, who came up with this prophecy and said that there would only be a limited number of popes, and we were counting down all the popes. This one is supposed to be the last one. If that's the case, that means the Antichrist is alive. The Antichrist is somewhere near my age. The Antichrist is working behind the scenes, controlling the cabal, and ends up controlling this pope. If it's that case, we'll see what happens. A lot of us are working on trying to change the timeline so that that's not going to happen anyways. So it'll be sort of moot point in that regard going forward. All right, so that's all I'm going to cover on that. Denise, welcome. I'm not going to continue talking about the prophecy of that because you guys could look this stuff up if you want. So I backed up, even though we're on question 16. So we're on session 94. We were on question 16. I'm going to go ahead and back it up to the beginning, and I'll just let it run so we can get caught back up. Because of the content, I talked about backing up a few questions, but I'm going to go back and then we'll let it run and get caught back up to question 16 where we were, just so that we can get back on track with that. I was running a little bit late. I had to go to the store, had to run up to the store and come back and then get mom ready to go. And Brooke was trying to run around and get everything put away while I was trying to do all that stuff because Brooke is still here, by the way. So we noticed that you guys, and I wanted to point this out, we noticed that you guys in the Law of One were live having a conversation earlier. I don't know if you're still doing that right now, but earlier when we were at the store, I noticed that you guys had a conversation going in there. That's good. I like that you guys are doing that. I saw that you guys did that the other day too, and you guys did that last week as well. Where you guys are starting to start your own conversations, online in there. It looked like you guys did a Zoom call. I didn't get to do Zoom on Wednesday. It was my brother's birthday. So we had him over for lunch at my house, and we did some fish and chips on his birthday. And then yesterday I went out and got married. So I was thinking about canceling today's show because of that. Brooke said never. She said, don't do that. Get back on there and make sure that you do that. That's more important than taking a day off. So I did not do that. We decided to go ahead and do that and do the show again today. So Friday night, the Law of One. Let's go ahead and get started. We'll do a sound check. We will do the session 94 from the beginning. So session 94, question 1, and we'll just go through and kind of rehash that a little bit till we get it back up there, and then the teens, and we'll run through. So let's do a sound check. You guys let me know how the sound is for you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and put this up in a full screen before I forget doing that, and then put myself out and put the video up into full screen, and we'll go ahead and do a sound check on the Law of One. As you can see on the screen that it is session 94, August 26th, 1982.
I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. I communicate now. Question 94.1. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. There is some small increase in physical energy deficit. It is not substantial. Or else is as at the previous asking. Question 94.2. Questioner, I have questions here from the instrument. The first one is,
thank you, Denise, for letting me know the sounds good. Let's continue.
Is our fifth density friend responsible for the instrument's extreme distortion towards pain during and just after sessions? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 94.3. Questioner, is there anything that we can do that we are not doing to remedy this situation so that the instrument does not experience this pain or as much pain? Answer, I am Ra. There is little that can be done due to a complex of pre-existing distortions. The distortions are triple in the source. There is the, shall we say, less than adequate work of your Kaya organs, which allows for various distortions in the left wrist area. There is the distortion called systemic lupus erythematosus, which causes the musculature of the lower left and right arms to allow for distortions in the normal, shall we say, configuration of both. Lastly, there is the nerve damage, more especially to the left, but in both appendages from the thoracic outlet. In the course of the waking behavior, the instrument can respond to the various signals which ring the tocsin of pain, thus alerting the mind complex, which in turn moves the physical complex in many and subtle configurations which relieve the various distortions. Your friend greets these distortions, as has been stated before, immediately prior to the beginning of the working. However, during the working, the instrument is not with its yellow ray chemical vehicle, and thusly the many small movements which can most effectively aid in the decrease of these distortions are not possible. Ra must carefully examine the mental configurations of the mind complex in order to make even the grossest manipulation. It is not our skill to use a yellow ray vehicle. The weight of the cover has some deleterious effect upon these distortions in some cases, and thus we mentioned that there was a small thing which could be done, that is, the framing of that which lifted the coverlet from the body slightly. In order to compensate for loss of warmth, the wearing of material warming the manual appendages would then be indicated. Question 94.4. Questioner, I immediately think of the instrument wearing long underwear under the robe that it now wears and an extremely light, white cover. Would this be satisfactory? Answer, I am Ra. Due to this instrument's lack of radiant physical energy, the heavier cover is suggested. Question 94.5. Questioner, in your statement, at the beginning of it, you said, less than adequate work of, and then there was a word that I didn't understand at all. Are you familiar with the word that I am trying to understand? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 94.6. Questioner, then we'll have to wait until we transcribe the material. I assume that our fifth density negative friend doesn't cause these distortions all of the time because he wishes to emphasize the fact that the instrument is going to be distorted only if she attempts one of these service to others workings and, therefore, attempts to stifle the workings. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is partially correct. The incorrect portion is this: the entity of which you speak has found its puissance * less than adequate to mount a continuous assault upon this instrument's physical vehicle and has, shall we say, chosen the more effective of the space-time nexi of this instrument's experience for its service. * puissance, the power to accomplish or achieve, potency, less than of. Question 94.7. Questioner, could you tell me why I have felt so tired on several recent occasions? Answer, I am Ra. This has been covered in previous material. The contact which you now experience costs a certain amount of the energy which each of the group brought into manifestation in the present incarnation. Although the brunt of this cost falls upon the instrument, it is caparisoned by pre-incarnative design with the light and gladsome armor of faith and will to a far more conscious extent than most mind, body, spirit complexes are able to enjoy without much training and initiation. Those of the support group also offer the essence of will and faith in service to others, supporting the instrument as it releases itself completely in the service of the one creator. Therefore, each of the support group also experiences a weariness of the spirit which is indistinguishable from physical energy deficit, except that if each experiments with this weariness, each shall discover the physical energy in its usual distortion. Question 94.8. Questioner: thank you. I didn't mean to go over previous material. I should have phrased my question more carefully. That is what I expected. I was trying to get a confirmation of my suspicion. I suspected that. I will try to be more careful in questioning. The second question from the instrument says, while on vacation I uncovered a lot about myself not consciously known before. It seems to me that I have coasted a lot on the spiritual gifts given at birth and never have spent any time getting to know my human self, which seems to be a child, immature and irrational. Is this so? Answer: I am Ra. This is partially correct. Question 94.9. Questioner: then she says, if this is so, this seems to be part of the riddle about the manner of my beingness that Ra spoke of. I fear that if I do not work successfully on my human distortions, I shall be responsible for losing the contact. Yet also Ra suggests the over-dedication to any outcome is unwise. Could Ra comment on these thoughts? Answer: I am Ra. We comment in general first upon the query about the contact, which indicates once again that the instrument views the mind, body, spirit complex with jaundiced eye. Each mind, body, spirit complex that is seeking shall almost certainly have the immature and irrational behaviors. It is also the case that this entity, as well as almost all seekers, has done substantial work within the framework of the incarnative experience and has indeed developed maturity and rationality. That this instrument should fail to see that which has been accomplished and see only that which remains to be accomplished may well be noted. Indeed, any seeker discovering in itself this complex of mental and mental-emotional distortions shall ponder the possible non-efficacy of judgment. As we approach the second portion of the query, we view the possibility of infringement upon free will. However, we believe we may make reply within the boundaries of the law of confusion. This particular instrument was not trained, nor did it study, nor worked it at any discipline in order to contact Ra. We were able, as we have said many times, to contact this group using this instrument because of the purity of this instrument's dedication to the service of the one infinite creator, and also because of the great amount of harmony and acceptance enjoyed each by each within the group, this situation making it possible for the support group to function without significant distortion. We are humble messengers. How can any thought be taken by an instrument as to the will of the creator? We thank this group that we may speak through it, but the future is mazed. We cannot know whether our jest may, after one final working, be complete. Can the instrument, then, think for a moment that it shall cease in the service of the one infinite creator? We ask the instrument to ponder these queries and observations. Question 94.10. Questioner: from the previous session the statement was made that much is veiled to the most apparently clear observation. Would Ra expand on what was meant by that statement? I assume that this means the veiling of all that which is outside of the limits of what we call our physical perception, having to do with the spectrum of light, etc. But I also intuit that there is more than that veiled. Would Ra expand on that concept? Answer: I am Ra. You are perceptive in your supposition. Indeed, we meant not any suggestions that the physical apparatus of your current illusion was limited as part of the veiling process. Your physical limits are as they are. However, because of the unique biases of each mind, body, spirit complex, there are sometimes quite simple instances of distortion when there is no apparent cause for such distortion. Let us use the example of the virile and immature male who meets and speaks clearly with a young female whose physical form has the appropriate configuration to cause, for this male entity, the activation of the red ray sexual arousal. The words spoken may be upon a simple subject such as naming, information as to the occupation, and various other common interchanges of sound vibratory complex. The male entity, however, is using almost all the available consciousness it possesses in registering the desirability of the female. Such may also be true of the female. Thusly, an entire exchange of information may be meaningless because the actual catalyst is of the body. This is unconsciously controlled and is not a conscious decision. This example is simplistic. Question 94.11. Questioner: I have drawn a small diagram in which I simply show an arrow which represents catalyst penetrating a line at right angles to the arrow, which is the veil, depositing in one of two repositories which I would call the right-hand path and the left-hand path, and I have labeled these two repositories the experience. Would this be a very rough analogy of the way the catalyst is filtered through the veil to become experience?
See, now this is where Don's getting back into, that's why I let it play until we get to here, because now he's getting back into the tarot cards and the description of the tarot cards. So if you have ever read tarot cards or you are a tarot card reader, you should pay attention because especially the 22 card deck, that's the original card deck that Ra brought to the earth 12,000 years ago and gave to the Egyptian priests, and that ended up coming out around the world and is now responsible for all tarot card decks worldwide, and all playing card decks worldwide came out of the evolution of the tarot deck. And now Dawn is starting to ask questions about his understanding of what the representation of the different arcana mean as regards to in this particular moment, talking about the right-hand path and left-hand path, meaning the path in service to others and the path in service to self, respectively, and the differentiation between those two. So the question is, which of these, would this be a very rough analogy of the way, this is what his last part of the question, the way the catalyst is filtered through the veil to become experience? And Ra's going to answer that question. So we're getting into the tarot cards and the meaning of the larger arcana or the chakra centers and the decision that people have to be in service to self or in service to others.
Say, I am Ra. Again, you are partially correct. The deeper biases of a mind, body, spirit complex pilot the catalyst around the many aisles of positivity and negativity as expressed in the archipelago of the deeper mind. However, the analogy is incorrect in that it does not take into account the further polarization which most certainly is available to the conscious mind after it has perceived the partially polarized catalyst from the deeper mind.
Right. So again, we got into that. This is why I kind of started over this week, because we're going to get into that because people were asking me a lot of questions about the different arcana and the different what does that mean, and that is the chakras and what those chakra centers represent. That would be the major arcana, and then you have the minor arcana and the chakra centers that are, say, red ray root through crown chakra. Those are the major arcana, large chakras, and then you have the minor chakras. Everything that moves, every knuckle that you have on your fingers, your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders, your toes, your ankles, your knees, your hips, and then your spinal column, all 33 vertebrae, everything that moves, that swivels or moves up and down like that, there is a small or minor chakra center there, minor arcana center there. All of that are ruled by the intricate system and the major arcana, the major chakras, red ray root, all the way up to the crown chakra. But There's also other contributing factors, your sun sign, when you were born, what time of the day, what time of the month, what time of the year that you were born. All of that factors in to your individual personality traits. Then if you're in service to others or in service to self, you pick up completely different personality traits at that point, either being self-serving or non-self-serving. And that then you're or that distortion thereof, as Ra would put it, the spirit, mind, body complex totality of an individual beingness, individual person living in the pain body in third dimension. And then your individual experiences that you draw on create your reality, and your focus then creates your reality. And your focus is always driven by your memories, and your experiences drive your memories. All right, let's continue.
Question 94.12. Questioner: it seems to me that the experience of the mind would act in such a way as to change the nature of the veil, so that catalyst would be filtered so as to be acceptable in the bias that is increasingly chosen by the entity. For instance, if he had chosen the right-hand path, the experience of the mind would change the permeability of the veil to accept more and more positive catalyst. Also, the other would be true for accepting more negative catalyst if the left-hand path were the one that was chosen. Is this correct? Answer: I am Ra. This is not only correct, but there is a further ramification. As the entity increases in experience, it shall more and more choose positive interpretations of catalyst if it is upon the service to others path, and negative interpretations of catalyst if its experience has been of the service to self path.
Right. So once you make a decision, which you do before you even get here. So it's not like when you're here, you then go, well, I'm going to take some time, be neutral, and figure it out after I turn about 30 or 40. You've already figured it out. You've already came through to be either in service to self or in service to others. But to what degree will be determined by each individual person. But as you see here, this is the like where Yoda said in that movie, I think it was Empire Strikes Back. I don't think it was Return of the Jedi yet. It was Empire Strikes Back when they were on that moon. It was Hoth, I think, was the moon. I think it was Hoth, where Luke went to meet with Yoda, and Yoda was teaching him. And he said, because he asked him whether the dark side was stronger, and he said no, if the dark side isn't stronger. And then he said, but if you go down the dark path forever, it'll dominate your destiny. Whichever path you choose, it will begin to dominate your destiny. And this is what Ra's referring to here when he says that this is not only correct, but there is a further ramification. As the entity increases its experience, it shall more and more choose positive interpretations of the catalyst upon itself to, service to others path, and negative interpretations of catalyst in the experience that they have as being in service to self. So there it starts to dominate your destiny. So if you are someone who's in service to others, you will then have a more and more positive outlook, and you will become more and more solidified in that path as you go forward. And the opposite is true for self-serving people. The longer they're on that path, the more that they will continue to become more and more self-serving until they repent their ways. That's a nautical term, until they repent their ways and eventually turn around and become in service to others. And you can't fool the universe. You can't pretend. A lot of people try to pretend. And I tell people here on this earth, you can pretend and you can fool humans. You can't fool the universe. The universe knows the difference. So you can fool humans and then fool yourself into thinking that you're fooling the universe. Truth is, you're not. And that's just the way it works. However, that does, once you start down on the path, then it's going to dominate your destiny. So you have to be careful because if you are doing the path, say you're in service to others, and then you start doing in service to self things, that can change your polarity and pull you in that direction. Even before you know it, then you'll go further down that path. That's exactly where, if you watch Lord of the Rings, especially the Brotherhood of the Ring, the first book of Lord of the Rings, when they were discussing the One Ring and people trying to say we should use the One Ring for good to go up against evil Sauron. and that one ring would then control you and consume you. And that was the contention of everyone, and that's the only reason why they gave it to the hobbits to carry, because they are more pure of heart and less evil as a species. They were mostly in service to others just by their very beingness. And so therefore they were more trustworthy to carry it, because it would take a lot longer time period to start corrupting them in service to others. And that's why that whole entire scenario was written by Tolkien for all of those books, was about that and having that power. And only the hobbits could unwittingly, they didn't want it, but they ended up having to have it because they were the only species in that entire pantheon that would have the ability to stave off for almost 100 years, but not quite, depending on how often they were using the ring or exposed to it, as you see in playing out in the movie, that Bilbo and Frodo both having problems with it over time, and the ring starting to corrupt them and turn them down the service to self path. All right, let's continue. Where this will finish out the first this video, part 1, and part 2 will start automatically for session 94, and we'll move right into the next question. So that'll start in just a second here once it primes. May even have a commercial prior to. A lot of times that happens. We'll see if it defaults to a commercial or not. Doesn't look like it's going to. So session 94, part 2.
Question 94.13. Questioner. Then the mechanism designed by the logos of the action of catalyst resulting in experience was planned to be self-accelerating, in that it would create this process of variable permeability. Is this an adequate statement? Answer. I am Ra. There is no variable permeability involved in the concepts we have just discussed. Except for this, you are quite correct.
Welcome, Penny. I didn't say hi to you. I see you there in the audience. You said hello. If you guys don't say hello in the audience, I just see numbers. I don't know who's here. So if you guys are able to, and you're on the MP4 broadcast somewhere around the world, you can say hello in the chat, and that will filter into the studio for me to be able to see what you guys are saying. If you're listening on the MP3 broadcast, or if you're on Instagram, those chats do not filter into the live studio for me to read. So if you're listening on the MP3 broadcast on your phone or your device somewhere around the world, I apologize. You'll have to communicate with me in some other way. Send me an email or message me on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, one of those platforms. You can message me on those, or you can email me. You can go to podbean.com and look me up there, or go to www.orionrising.podbean.com, and you can send me a message there on that platform. Otherwise, you guys will have to jump onto YouTube or Facebook to then send messages to the live broadcast. All right, let's continue with the next question.
Question 94.14. Questioner. Now I can understand, to use a poor term again, the necessity for the archetype of catalyst of the mind, but what is the reason for having a blueprint or model for the experience of the mind other than the simple model of dual repositories for negative and positive catalyst? It seems to me that the first distortion of free will would be better served if no model for experience was made. Could you clear that up for me? Answer. I am Ra. Your question is certainly interesting, and your confusion hopefully productive. We cannot teach for the student. We shall simply note, as we have previously, the attraction of various archetypes to male and to female. We suggest that this line of consideration may prove productive. Question 94.15. Questioner. In the fourth archetype, the card shows a male whose body faces forward. I assume that this indicates that the experience of the mind will reach for catalyst. However, the face is to the left, which indicates to me that in reaching for catalyst, negative catalyst will be more apparent in its power and effect. Would Ra comment on this?
Paulie, welcome. Happy to see you say hi in the chat. So welcome. All right, let's continue here with the law of one.
Answer. I am Ra. The archetype of experience of the mind reaches not, O student, but, with firm authority, grasps what it is given. The remainder of your remarks are perceptive. Question 94.16. Questioner. The experience is seated upon the square of the material illusion, which is colored much darker than in card number 3. However, there is a cat inside of this square. I am guessing as experience is gained, the second density nature of the illusion is understood and the negative and positive aspects separate. Would Ra comment on this? Answer: I am Ra. This interpretation varies markedly from Ra's intention. We direct the attention to the cultural meaning of the great cat which guards. What, O student, does it guard? And with what awry flame does it lighten the darkness of manifestation? The polarities are, indeed, present, the separation non-existent except through the sifting which is the result of cumulative experience. Other impressions were intended by this configuration of the seated image with its milk-white leg and its pointed foot. Question 94.17. Questioner: in card number 3, the feet of the female entity are upon the unstable platform, signifying the dual polarity by its color. In card number 4, one foot is pointed so that if the male entity stands on the toe it will be carefully balanced. The other foot is pointed to the left. Would Ra comment on my observation that if the entity stands on this foot it will be very, very carefully balanced? Answer: I am Ra. This is an important perception, for it is a key to not only this concept complex but to others as well. You may see the T-square which, at times riven as is 1 foot from secure fundament by the nature of experience, yet still by this same nature of experience, is carefully, precisely, and architecturally placed in the foundation of this concept complex and, indeed, in the archetypical mind complex. Experience asterisk has the nature of more effectively and poignantly expressing the architecture of experience, both the fragility of structure and the surety of structure. Asterisk, that is card number 4, experience of the mind.
Okay, so your experience, again, determines your reality. So your focus determines your reality because your experience determines your focus. So your own memories, your own experiences are what you focus on, and that's where literally your reality is created by that. So we do not see reality for how it is. We see reality by how we are. So that when you ask, literally, you could set down 100 people and ask them what reality is, and you will get 100 different definitions of that. What reality is. Peter, welcome. So you have to, yeah, right. Peter saying, congratulations to all Americans for the first American Pope, which we discussed many times would never happen because of the American Church, even the Roman Catholic Church in America being far too liberal for the Roman Catholic Church in Italy and in Rome. And they went and elected a man who was born and raised in Chicago, weirdly. So we'll find out what happens with that, like I said before, where that goes with prophecy. So again, let me get back to the law of one. So again, your focus determines your reality, and your experiences determine your focus, right? So let's continue the law of one, session 94, question number 18.
Question 94.18. Questioner: it would seem to me, from the configuration of this male entity in card number 4, who looks to the left with the right foot pointed to the left, that this card would indicate you must be in a defensive position with respect to the left-hand path, but there is no need to concern yourself about protection with respect to the right-hand path. Would Ra comment on that? Answer: I am Ra. Again, this is not the suggestion we wish to offer by constructing this image. However, the perception cannot be said to be incorrect.
Right, so you have to realize, again, the left-hand path is in service to others. The right-hand path is in service. No, the other way around. The left-hand path is in service to self. Right-hand path is in service to others. And that's universal. It doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed. That's universal. Left side is always a more negative, masculine energy. Right side is a more feminine energy. So it's a passive feminine energy. So you have the Kundalini being the masculine energy, the Kunda buffer being the feminine energy that round out what people mistakenly just refer to as the Kundalini energy. Kundalini is actually a word meaning masculine. Kunda buffer is the actual word for the feminine. There are two energies that create the balance, the yin and the yang, showing that, or the Celtic knotwork, the Viking knotwork, always shows two energies intertwining. That is the Kundalini energy and the Kunda buffer energy that create those two aspects of each one of us.
Question 94.19. Questioner, the magical shape is on the right edge of the card number 4, which indicates to me that the spiritual experience would be on the right-hand path. Could Ra comment on that? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. The figure is expressing the nature of experience by having its attention caught by what may be termed the left-hand catalyst. Meanwhile, the power, the magic, is available upon the right-hand path. The nature of experience is such that the attention shall be constantly given varieties of experience. Those that are presumed to be negative, or interpreted as negative, may seem in abundance. It is a great challenge to take catalyst and devise the magical, positive experience. That which is magical in the negative experience is much longer coming, shall we say, in the third density. Question 94.20. Questioner, both the third and fourth archetypes, as I see it, work together for the sole purpose of creating the polarity in the most efficient manner possible. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This cannot be said to be incorrect. We suggest contemplation of this thought complex.
Right. So you need to take a look at those, learning the chakras, learning what they represent and the archetypes that they represent. Makes it easier to balance those chakras. You have to remember that the red ray root chakra, the first three chakras in that, which are actually the third, fourth, and fifth chakra in the list of things, but people on this planet haven't really gotten to that point yet of understanding that. They used to know that, because if you read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, which are older than even the Sumerian texts, although they won't acknowledge 100% that it is, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, who was an Atlantean, so it goes back to at least 77,000 years ago, and quite possibly further back than that. Ra referred to these archetypes as 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9. So that literally tells you that the names, that's what he said, literally said that, the names of those gods that rule the archetypes are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that would suggest that because he was talking about the chakras. So if you listen to or read the Emerald Tablets, the first 7 books of the Emerald Tablets are literally about each chakra and how to balance that chakra. So, and referring to the god that rules that is the chakra itself. The Greeks and the Egyptians and the Romans and the Hebrews eventually referred to those. The Greeks called that a spindle wheel, and the Hebrews called that the wheel within a wheel. That's referred to in the Hebrew Bible by like Daniel and a few others who were getting messages from God talking about that. So once you start to realize that the first 3 chakras are the physical plane, the heart chakra balancing that, and then the upper 3 chakras being the spiritual plane, you realize that the first 3 chakras are the in service to self portion, and the upper 3 chakras, the spiritual, are in service to others portion of your beingness as you go through your progression. However, that doesn't say that the person who is spiritual does not have any of the aspects of the bottom 3 chakras, because they do. It also goes in the same in the reverse, that people who are self-serving would be living in the bottom 3 chakras they would also still have aspects of the upper 3 chakras. They would not have them as prevalent in their decision making or psyche as the reverse. So people who are in service to others eventually move into the upper 3 chakras and are ruled by those 3 from the heart. And then the people who stay in service to self stay in the bottom 3 chakras and in the heart chakra being like in the yin and the yang, where you see those two, the white dot in the black field and the black dot in the white field. That portion is the overlapping of the two, which makes up the Vesica Pisces, where you see the overlapping, and that overlapping is a toroidal field around the heart. So you have a triple toroidal field, one bottom 3 chakras, one top 3 chakras, or the Egyptians would have drawn it as a cartouche, as an upper and lower cartouche going from the heart chakra up and from the heart chakra down. That's how they do that, where they drew a circle that was encompassing what they were trying to show you, and they called it a cartouche. Let's continue here.
Question 94.21. Questioner, then prior to the veiling process, that which we call catalyst after the veiling was not catalyst simply because it was not efficiently creating polarity, because this loading process, you might say, that I have diagrammed of catalyst passing through the veil and becoming polarized experience was not in effect because the viewing of what we call catalyst by the entity was seen much more clearly as the experience of the...
Well, Paulie says, I always thought that the left-hand side of the body is the feminine. Now that some people that are right-handed think that the right-hand side is the masculine because they're right-handed. And if they are a person that is more masculine, they tend to think that because they're right-handed, that's the masculine side. And some people who are left-handed do the same because they're dominant left hand. If they're a masculine character or type A, they assume that means that side is that. So people always think that what handed they are and what they believe their side of being is the way it is. But it's not that way. That is something that we perceive. Again, it's not the way reality actually is. In the universe itself, it's always that way. Like when you're talking to your guides, you will notice that the guides always come from the right side, not the left side. If you're talking to, and some people say, well, my guides always come from the left side, then you're in service to others, and whether you want to admit it or not, because your guides don't choose the opposite side. The universe is universal. So the enlightenment in the universal is always universal. Everyone has the right side is the positive, the left side is the negative. The negative is the masculine, the positive is the feminine. But when it comes to the chakras or the personality traits, it would be, in fact, the opposite than what you think, because the man has the right. So the man has the penis, so that would be the positive. But that's the aggressive, not positive and meaning in service to others. That's the aggressive attitude where the feminine receives the penis. So the female is the receptacle. So that is more passive, and that's the feminine. So the feminine side is the right-hand side. It doesn't matter what your right-handed or left-handedness is, or what your alignment is, service to self or service to others. The universe is universal. So it's always that way because there are chakras in everything, because it's the building blocks to the universe. It's just that people interpret them the opposite way around, and they don't realize that they're interpreting it that way. But once you wake up enough on either path, you realize that it doesn't flip, because that would be too confusing if one person, because then what do you do if one person says, well, my positive side's the lower body and my negative side's the upper body, and the person next to them says, well, mine's the opposite of that. And then, do you see what I'm saying? So everybody would make up their own what's positive and what's negative, and there would be no consistency. So the universe is consistent. It's just like people don't realize that as you wake up, if you're in service to others, everything that you gain from your awakeness it literally will be the same. And your interpretation of it will be different, but the knowledge that you gain will always be the same. The same is said for if you're in service to self, you will then gain the same knowledge that all other people who are self-serving gain. However, what you get from it and where you take that knowledge is completely up to each individual. Again, our focus determines our reality, not reality determining our focus. Right. So it's literally our experience determines, because that's what determines our focus, and our focus determines our reality. So if you don't have any training, you will assume whatever position you think is best. Just like when you are whatever religion you are, if you go down the path of a religion, you will find that your religion will tell you that they are the right religion and all other religions are wrong. All religions say that about all other religions. That doesn't mean that all religions are right. It doesn't mean that all religions are wrong, because they're all right and they're all wrong in the same respect. Because the truth is they're all teaching the same thing. It's universal. The determination, the differentiation between religion is semantics, and how you semantically worship whatever deity figure, and people fight over the name that they call each god and goddess, or whether or not they're a masculine warlike religion or a feminine warlike religion, or a masculine passive religion, or a feminine passive religion, or a dual aspected religion. that, or spiritual practice. They still, because they're money-making schemes in the physical plane, they still want to dominate the world. So therefore they say they're correct and everyone else is wrong. And they teach that to their parishioners. And that's why you have holy wars that go on. Same thing happens with other things until you become awake enough to stop being the child and start becoming the adult. Once you do that, you become objective, not subjective. Once you become objective, you realize that the energy and the knowledge from the universe is universal. So wisdom in the universe is universal. Everyone gains the same wisdom. And eventually you realize that the left-hand side of the body is the masculine and the right-hand side of the body is the feminine. And that means the left-hand side is in service to self when it comes to that aspect. And the opposite is true for the right-hand side of the body. It becomes the feminine. So it becomes the path of the in service to others side. And that's just the way that's not my interpretation. It's the way the universe works. And if you listen to anybody that's awake enough, they'll tell you the same thing because it is universal. All right, let's continue.
The one creator and not something that was a function of other mind, body, spirit complexes. Would Ra comment on that statement? Answer: I am Ra. The concepts discussed seen without significant distortion. Question 94.22. Questioner: thank you. Then we're expecting, in card number 4, to see the result of catalytic action and, therefore, a greater definition between the dark and the light areas. In just glancing at this card, we noticed that it is more definitely darkly colored in some areas and more white in others in a general sense than in card number 3, indicating to me that the separation along the two biases has occurred and should occur in order to follow the blueprint for experience. Could Ra comment on that? Answer: I am Ra. You are perceptive, O student. Question 94.23. Questioner: the bird in card number 3 now seems to be internalized in the center of the entity in card number 4, and that it has changed from its flight in card number 3. The flight has achieved its objective and has become a central part of the experience. Could Ra comment on that? Answer: I am Ra. This perception is correct, O student, but what shall the student find the bird to signify? Question 94.24. Questioner: I would guess that the bird signifies that a communication that comes as catalyst signified in card number 3 is accepted by the female and, used, becomes a portion of the experience. I'm not sure of that at all. Am I in any way correct? Answer: I am Ra. That bears little of sense. Question.
There's snarky Ra, right? That bears little of sense. Snarky Ra. No. Right? Love that when Ra gets snarky.
94.25. Questioner: I'll have to work on that. Then I am guessing that the crossed legs of the entity in card 4 have a meaning similar to the crux and zeta. Is this correct?
Okay, again, the crux and zeta is the Ankh that you guys out there in the world on this planet refer to it as the Ankh of Isis, right? But the actual term for that clinically, scientifically, is crux and zeta.
Answer: I am Ra. This is correct. The cross formed by the living limbs of the image signifies that which is the nature of mind, body, spirit complexes in manifestation within your illusion. There is no experience which is not purchased by effort of some kind, no act of service to self or others which does not bear a price to the entity manifesting, commensurate with its purity. All things in manifestation may be seen in one way or another to be offering themselves in order that transformations may take place upon the level appropriate to the action. Question 94.26. Questioner: the bird is within the circle on the front of the entity on card 4. Would that have the same significance of the circular part of the crux and zeta? Answer: I am Ra. It is a specialized form of this meaningful shape. It is specialized in great part due to the nature of the crossed legs of manifestation which we have previously discussed.
Right, and you have to realize that, sitting in the lotus position, that creates the cross leg position that you're talking about, and then in Reiki, when you create the energy within yourself and close the circuit within yourself, where if you're a man, you, or both sexes, you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, in that space of your tongue that is slightly rounded, where you put it at the top of your roof of your mouth and move it forward towards the front of your mouth, and just behind the teeth that you have, that above in the gums, where it starts to round, your tongue will fit into that space in your upper jaw, in your cavity of your mouth. You put your tongue there, and if you're a man, you flex your what's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word that I'm thinking of right now. Your prostate. You flex that. If you're a woman, you kegel and you hold it. So you flex the prostate and hold it. Flex, kegel, hold it with your tongue in that position. Inhale through your nose and hold your breath. That creates a figure eight, an infinity loop, which is the crux and zeta, which is what that loop signifies in the energy, where it becomes internalized and continues to flux around on itself and build in polarity. It keeps building up. The energy keeps building and building and building, and then you release that energy in your manifestation. And people do that when they're casting spells. People do that when they're doing an intense Reiki session. You only learn that if you're a master teacher, and if your master teacher is aware of that and learns that technique, which comes from all the way back to the endemi in that line. But it's not as often taught as much as people think that it is, right? So so Cassie says, so in meditation, it's better to have the tongue to the roof of the mouth. Yes, if you're trying to create that place where, when you're in meditating, you should just have the tongue there anyways in meditating, and then that actually allows you to feel the resonance in your skull. And if you're doing the Om sound, if you have your tongue there, it will resonate more in your skull to know that you're hitting the right tone of the Om sound. But it's hard to do a kegel in a woman's sense, or a flexing of the for the man of the prostate, and hold that for a long period of time. So you can only hold that portion of it for a short period of time. But when you are meditating, if you're doing a deep meditation, the tongue to the roof of the mouth will assist in that meditation and move you into a higher plane. And then if you're casting a spell, or if you're doing an intense Reiki, or you're casting an intense spell, utilizing that is like akin to if you know how to drive a stick shift, and you put the clutch in, and so then that pulls, and the flywheel just spins as the clutch is in, and the car is not in gear. And then if you drop the flywheel, the car will then chirp, right? You'll spin the tires. So that's the same thing. You're pulling the flywheel, and that is causing you to loop that energy, to build that energy up. And then when you release that kegel, if you're a female, or prostate if you're a male, then that energy then is focused wherever you're focusing it, and it's more intense by like tenfold than it would be if you just channeled that energy through you. So when you're meditating, putting your tongue to the roof of your mouth will allow you to get into a meditative state faster and stay in that place of meditation longer, just by keeping that tongue at the roof of the mouth. And if you want to use that other portion of that, and you're a man, you can flex the prostate, hold it until it's, it becomes hard to do. If you're kegling, you've ever done that as a woman, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a man and you've ever flexed your prostate, you know that that's hard to hold in that position for any length of time. Even with practice, you can do it, but you can't do it for hours at a time. It's just not possible to do. The muscle will relax because it'll become worn out, or you'll cramp. That's just how that works. However, for short bursts, you can do that, and you can hold it for a little bit of time, right? Penny said, wow, now I'm dizzy. There you go. Okay, so yeah. And Chandra said, yeah, I learned that too. See, so your master teacher, your Reiki master teacher taught you that to do that, to build that stuff up and move forward. And that's always good, right? Paulie said it's kind of floating there. Yeah, right. That's what happens. That energy literally goes through your body, crosses through the heart chakra, goes up through the upper chakras, spins back down through the heart chakra in a figure 8 motion, that infinity motion, and then we'll go back down and loop back up again. And so the heart chakra becomes the 0 point of that energy, and it just sits there looping inside of your body until you release that Kegel as a woman or release that prostate as a man, and then that energy will be focused wherever you determine that energy to be focused, coming out your hands, coming out your third eye, or however you're utilizing that energy for whatever burst of energy. So Cassie says, okay, some guided meditations will tell you to release the tongue from the roof and relax, but my intuition always told me to keep the circuit together. Good to know. Thank you, Leo. Yes. So they do that because if people don't release it at some point, if you don't know and you're a novice, they'll say, now release the tongue, because they don't want you to inadvertently pull that energy and keep it there. And then, you know what I mean? So they won't just teach a novice to do the Kegel or the prostate flex, because if you don't know what you're doing, then you can harm yourself, and you could also, get a cramp from holding that too long. So you have to build up, male or female has to build up for a distance or length, and both of them are good for obvious reasons, sexual reasons and otherwise, for each individual, a man or a woman, in respectively in those categories. So it's always good to practice that. I learned that from Christopher Penzick, who was one of the greatest Reiki master teachers, who is the reason that you can look up the Reiki symbols online, because back in 1991 to 1994, he released them to the world for the first time in the history of the world. He said people need to have these in the world. It's not something that should be kept a secret and only given to Reiki masters. People should be able to see what these symbols are and learn them and figure out what they are, because it was never intended to be kept from the world. So he released those, and that's why they're on the internet to this day, is because of him. And he was the one that was teaching people back then, hands on Reiki on, hands off Reiki off. That simple. And then teaching that technique to people. And we furthered that from that and started teaching that in meditation, at least the tongue in the meditation, and then higher magic, that's magic with a K, in any reckoning, to be used with either the Kegel or the prostate flexing. All right, so let's continue here, but that's vital. So you'll learn that in meditation, where they'll tell you to put the tongue to the roof of the mouth, because that helps that portion of your ascension, or you achieving that place of that blissful place outside the reach of the ego or the thinking mind. When you're getting to that place, wherever that place is, they start you with your safe place, or your heart place, or whatever, your safe space, wherever they teach you that is, or what they teach you, because you figure it out on your own, but where you're trying to achieve, and that is you moving into your higher self, in the realization that I am not the physical pain body, I am not the thinking mind, I am not the ego, I am that which is the experiencer. That's where you're trying to get with all meditation anyway. And to achieve that, it's easier if you put your tongue to the roof of your mouth, because that creates that harmonic resonance in your skull, getting back to the Om sound of If you hit that Om sound with your tongue there, you'll find that it resonates a lot more in your skull than if your tongue is not in that place. All right, let's continue.
Question 94.27. Questioner, the entity on card 4 wears a strangely shaped skirt. Is there a significance to the shape of this skirt? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 94.28. Questioner, the skirt is extended toward the left hand but is somewhat shorter toward the right. There is a black bag hanging from the belt of the entity on the left side. It seems to me that this black bag has a meaning of the acquiring of the material possessions of wealth as a part of the left-hand path. Would Ra comment on that?
Right. Hi, Deborah. That's funny, Penny. Penny's saying she was kegling. Now she has to go pee. Right? That happens. That can happen, right? That's funny. If your bladder's not empty and you're kegling, you might have to then go pee. All right, let's continue. That's funny.
Answer, I am Ra. Although this meaning was not intended by Ra as part of this complex of concepts, we find the interpretation quite acceptable. 30-second pause. I am Ra. As we observe a lull in the questioning, we shall take this opportunity to say that the level of transferred energy dwindles rapidly, and we would offer the opportunity for one more full question at this working, if it is desired. Question 94.29. Questioner: I would just state that this card, being male, would indicate that as experience is gained, the mind becomes the motivator, or that which reaches or does more than the simple experiencer it was prior to the gaining of the catalytic action. There is a greater tendency for the mind to direct the mind-body-spirit complex, and other than that I would just ask if there is anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact.
Well, before Raw answers that, I also want to say to Penny that the more you do that and you practice kegling, the more you have control over that. If you've had children and sometimes somebody makes you laugh or they scare you or you sneeze, and then you might pee a little bit. The more you kegel, the more you can keep yourself from doing that in those moments, because you have that ability at that point. However, when you first do it, if there's that you have that risk of possibly having to go to the bathroom from just the action of doing that if you're not used to doing it, if you haven't kegled. That's hilarious, though. All right, let's continue.
Answer: I am Ra. In the context of your penultimate query, we would suggest that you ponder again the shape of the garment which the image wears. Such habiliment is not natural. The shape is significant and is so along the lines of your query. The support group cares well for the instrument. We would ask that care be taken, as the instrument has been offered the gift of a distortion towards extreme cold by the fifth density friend which greets you. Although you may be less than pleased with the accoutrements, may we say that all was as carefully prepared as each was able. More than that none can do. Therefore, we thank each for the careful alignments. All is well. We leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one glorious infinite Creator. Go forth, then, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the One. Adonai.
Right, so that's the end of session 94 of the Law of One. Session 95 will start in just a moment, and by now I think at this point we'll probably end up with a commercial first. I'll have to fast forward past that because they haven't had one so far. That means there should be one coming up. Session 95, September 2nd, 1980.
I am Ra. I greet you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 95.1. Questioner: could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer: I am Ra. It is as previously stated. Question 95.2. Questioner: thank you. What is the situation with respect to our fifth density negative associate? Answer: I am Ra. The aforenamed entity has chosen various means to further its service, and though each is effective in itself, none leads to the lessening of the dedication to service for others or the valuing of harmonious interaction. Therefore, the entity, though not quiet as it has been, is somewhat depolarized and unbalanced. Question 95.3. Questioner: there seems to be an extremely high probability that we will move from this position to another residence. If we move from this residence and cease using this room for workings with Ra, is there a magically appropriate ritual for closing the use of this place of working, or is there anything that we should do with respect to leaving this particular place? Answer: I am Ra. It would be appropriate to remove from this room and, to a lesser extent, from the dwelling, the charging of what you might call the distortion towards sanctity. To remove this charge, it is valuable either to write upon your paper your own working or to use existing rituals for the deconsecration of a sacred place such as one of your churches.
Right. So once you start using a place for different things like this, pardon me, I have phlegm. Especially if you set up altars, especially if you do something that if you're casting spells in a certain place, then that means you're aligning it with the watchtowers or the corridors. You're aligning it with the earth itself, and you're turning it into a sacred space. Once you're done with it and you're going to leave it, it is always respectful to close. Thank the universe, thank the quarters, thank the area, respectfully, and close just like you would if you're a Wiccan or a druid or a pagan, to where you're casting a circle. You want to close that circle. You also want to close the space being utilized by the energies that you are using, so that you're not leaving portals open that unexpected people might tend to have an issue with. Because if you leave a portal open and it's unattended, people are going to be drawn to it, and say disembodied spirits will be drawn to that portal because it is a portal. They'll try to figure out what's going on. They'll go there like a moth to flames, and then you won't know. They won't know what's going on. That creates haunted houses because people open up portals and don't close them because they don't know that they should do so. That happens a lot. You have like the Amityville house was one of that, and people were like, it's a portal to hell. It wasn't a portal to hell. It was just a portal that was opened up at some point in the past by people who did not understand to close a portal, and they left, or whatever happened to them. They were no longer there on property. Years and years go by. You have entities, good and evil, that are coming through the portal that are trying to figure out what's going on. Some of them utilizing it to gain energy. If they're in service to others, then you have different reasons for that. And in the Amityville house was one of those where you had a lot of calamity. And sometimes if portals were open, even inadvertently, and someone dies there or someone gets murdered there, that energy gets stored because of the portal. It gets trapped there, and then it plays out, and that creates poltergeists and it creates problems throughout time. And people have to then go and repair those, to fix those, to close those out. And depending on what religion they send, usually it's Roman Catholic priests that they send in, because they still have the same exorcism ritual that goes back to almost 2,000 years, right? So a lot of times it's those people who end up having to deal with things from the Roman Catholic Church, and everybody makes fun of them outwardly in the movies about the Roman Catholics and and how they're laughed about but yet every person in every religion, as soon as they have a problem, they call the Roman Catholics to come and fix it. You should ask the question of your clergy, why is that? If you guys laugh at the Roman Catholics, why is it that you guys get a Roman Catholic priest to come and exorcise somebody, or to fix a house that is that you can't fix, or you can't unpossess, you know what I mean? Or deconstruct when it comes to that sort of thing, because that's usually what happens. Or somebody like myself that actually understands what's going on, and then we can come in and fix things. All right, let's continue here.
Question 95.4. Questioner, thank you. The new room that we choose for this working will of course be carefully cleaned and marked surfaces made well. We shall also use the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram prior to our working. Is there anything else that Ra could suggest? I would like also to know if there is anything in particular that you might suggest with respect to the particular place that has been chosen for our new location.
Right, before Ra answers that, Joanne, welcome. Penny posed the question. That's what I need help with right now. How do we open a portal and close it? Yeah, not going to talk about that live on air to teach people how to do either one of those things, because if you don't know what you're doing, and I suggest that to you, you can end up getting yourself hurt by, first of all, trying to open a portal. You should never be doing that unless you know what you're doing. So if you have to ask somebody that question, you don't need to be doing it. Otherwise, you would have that. But I could talk to you, Penny, off camera, off live, and help you with that. Especially if you have one that you feel is open and you want to sense that and close it, I can help you with that. Opening portals, I would also have to work with you off camera, off live, because it's not something that you want people dabbling with. We have already problems with people getting a Ouija board and playing with that, in which it opens a portal and then they don't know how to close it, and then they end up having spirits come through and it scares them and they don't know what's going on. So we can't have people just hearing my voice telling you that. I would be remiss in doing so, and it would be karma that would be my problem, my karmic debt, that I would give that information out to the world for children of all ages to be then playing with and opening portals. So let's have a fun and open a portal. That'd be like me telling everybody how to use a Ouija board to get serious, to get a portal open, and then them, that comes back on me. So you don't want to mess around with that, right? So Penny, contact me later if you do have stuff that is going on, and I can help you with that. And I'm sure that there's a few others like Joanne, I'm sure can help you with that as well. But yeah, we can help you if there's one that's open and inadvertently happened and you want it closed. We'll work with you off camera to help you do that. But yeah, I'm not going to talk on a live about opening and closing portals. No, not doing that for the world to hear. Right. All right. So let's continue with Raw. And Chandra, I didn't even think I said hi to you. You came in, started talking. I didn't say hi. Hi to Chandra. Hi. I didn't say hello. Joanne, welcome. Like I said, Paulie, I said hi to you. I think if I didn't, I apologize. Hi there. Let's continue with the law of one.
Answer, I am Ra. We scanned the recent memory configurations of the questioner. Firstly, there have been some less than harmonious interactions within this dwelling. The dynamics of this interaction were potent enough to attract a lesser thought form. Therefore, we suggest the salting and ritual cleansing by blessed water of all windows and doorways which offer adit into the domicile or any outbuildings thereof. Further, we suggest the hanging of the cut garlic clove in the portion of the room which has accommodated those whose enjoyment has turned into a darker emotion centering upon the area we find you call the wet bar, also the room intended for the sleeping which is found near the kitchen area.
Right, before that goes any further, I want to note it here that, everyone says, oh, there's not a thing to that. Hanging of garlic, right? So cloves of garlic hanging, you hear this all the time, and you see people hanging them in their houses, and people go, oh, it doesn't mean anything. They're just hanging those up there so that they have garlic whenever they want to eat it. But there's a reason for that, and that helps with warding off things and cleansing areas, just the same way smoke does when you use Palo Santo or you use sage or something like that for those purposes of clearing out space to do work in. You want to do the same thing when you're closing a space that you had been working in. You want to also sage the room or do some sort of walking of that to close the energies and to thank the energies that were there, especially if you set up an altar or if you're setting up a church and then you're going to close it because you have to move. And that's what Ra's talking about here. So you want to make sure that you deconstruct anything that you constructed in a space when you leave it, again, so that you can respectively leave a space or a room in a house, innocent for innocent people when they come in, or muggle-born for muggle-borns, depending on what you guys know is that and what books you've read, whether you're reading those books or whatever. All right, so let's continue.
The appropriate words used to bid farewell to those of the lower astral shall be used in connection with the hanging of the garlic cloves for the period of approximately 36 of your hours. We believe that this is equivalent to 2 of your night periods and 1 of your lit periods. This should cleanse the house as you find it to the extent that it is neutral in its vibrations of harmony, love, and thanksgiving, which this group shall then, as the incarnational experience proceeds, offer to the domicile. Question 95.5. Questioner, I am assuming that we would prepare the blessed water the same as we prepare the water for the instrument to drink after a session and would then wipe the windows and doors with this water. This would probably have to be done in a bucket. I would like to know if this is correct, and what was meant by salting the windows and doors. Answer, I am Ra. Firstly, you may bless the water yourselves or may request so-called holy water from any blessed place, that is, blessed by intention. Secondly, the water shall be carefully shaken from the fingers along the sills of all windows and doors as they have been opened. Thirdly, prior to the sprinkling of this cleansing, blessing sacrament of water, the salt shall be trailed along these sills in a line and again allowed to exist in this configuration for 36 to 48 hours. Then the virgin broom may ritually sweep the salt out of each window and doorway, sweeping with each stroke the less fortunate of the vibrations within the dwelling which might find coexistence with group difficult.
Right? Penny was talking about, oh, good, maybe I can hang the garlic in cleaning the house spiritually as well. Right? And your dad may not notice that or see that as anything other than you just hanging garlic up in the air to let it dry out so that you can use the garlic at some point. And just, take it down and replace it at some point with another garlic, and he'll think you're cooking with it or whatever. Or you could cook with it and put some new stuff up, or you know what I mean? But yeah, the salt raises the vibration. It also will create those barriers. Joanne's talking about that. You can put the salt down and then sweep the salt away from the house, out of the house, and that's going to draw out negative energy. So salt will then raise the positive, like Joanne's saying, raise the positive vibration. So a lot of people will do that, and they'll put salt on the window sills, they'll put salt on the door thresholds around a house, and that will protect your house and keep the energies in there that you're using. So if you're using a room to cast spells in, or you're using your house, you can do that and put salt on things. That's why you see, like, even in comedies, if you go back to, there was a comedy with Chevy Chase where he was they thought he was possessed by, I don't remember what the movie was about, where he was possessed by a demon, and but it wasn't, he had gotten like radioactivity on him, so he was just seeming like that, but it was a comedy, and they put down salt to surround him, to trap him, and he leaned down and snorted the salt like it was cocaine, then laughed and laughed about it. But you can do that if you need to bind something out of a space. You can use the salt. If you're trying to bind something in the space, you can use the salt. And then if you're trying to cleanse the space, and this is what they're referring to here, by putting the salt in those areas and then sweeping the salt with a virgin broom, sweeping the salt away from the building, and in doing so, sweeping the salt out of the building, and is pulling out negative energy and charging the place with positive energy, replacing it with positive energy, right? So Joanne's absolutely right when she said the salt raises the vibration in a positive way, right? Joanne says, I use saltines each and every corner of my room to raise the vibration of my room also, right? So yeah, you could use that. I mean, you could use, like she's talking about saltine, you can talk about like saltine crackers and do the same thing when she's talking about selenite. I think, yes, you're talking about basically a solid piece of salt, right? Selenite is very crystalline in structure, just like salt is. So you can do the same thing with crystals and other crystals that you want to use. I used to do that. In fact, I still do that. I was talking to Brooke about that. We're making ormus. I protect the ormus by surrounding it with crystals, using that same crystalline structure for the positive energy, and it's harmonically resonant. I talked about that being part of the studies where you can take a plate and set it on top of a speaker and then tune the speakers so that you hit certain frequencies and change the frequencies. And you put salt on the plate, just pour it on the plate. When you hit a certain frequency, all the salt will start to vibrate, and it will spontaneously move into a geometric shape right before your eyes, and it'll stay in that shape as long as that speaker is on broadcasting at that frequency. And the second you tune it either above or below that frequency, the salt will just stop and sort of fall and not be in that frequency pattern anymore. That's literally happens. So it's crystalline in structure, and it holds that harmonic resonant, salt being that way, and all crystalline matter, crystals or selenite, like Joanne's talking about, you can charge that with the energy that you want. And in Joanne's case, she's using them in the corners at the cardinal points, more than likely, to protect and to use the energy in the things that she's doing. So she puts them in every corner of her room to raise the vibration of her room also. Do you see? Okay. So good for protection, right, Joanne? Good for protection. Yeah. So, right, Chandra, ormus is very powerful if you learn how to make it the proper way. There's many ways of making it. There's some that are dangerous where you have to wear gloves and a respirator and goggles because they use lye in it. But there's other ways of making it that I can teach you how to make that, but I don't do that free anymore because that you can make $40 an ounce from the ormus that I'll teach you how to make. And it's an ancient Egyptian method that they used. They used to call it Cleopatra's milk because Cleopatra used to bathe in it. So I don't teach that stuff for free anymore for people that want to know. I used to give it away for free. But if you're good at something, never do it for free. Eventually you have to start teaching it and charge people money for it. Because you can make money off of it. So there's a transfer of energy that goes into that. I also teach people how to make colloidal silver also. So if you guys are interested in that, contact me afterwards and we'll go from there. Before we do this, speaking of those things, I want to run my commercial because I haven't done that in a couple of weeks. So we're going to go ahead and take this interlude to pay the bills by showing you the commercial. For those of you on the MP4 broadcast, you'll be able to see that. Those of you on the MP3 broadcast, you'll still be able to hear the commercial. This is a commercial for my book, The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways.
What is the reality about reality? Returning to the old ways. It is a comprehensive book about what is really going on here on this planet. It talks about the true spirituality that the controllers who think they own this planet have been keeping from you for thousands of years. It explains to you the knowledge that you gain from the universe itself when you live the way the prophets of the world throughout time told us how to live. Eat right, meditate, take care of yourself, treat others right. All the things they originally told us to do, but the controllers have removed from right in front of our eyes. The way to ascend to heaven. The reality about reality. Returning to the old ways. On sale worldwide online now.
Okay, so let me hold on here. I got to get back to where I was so I can continue. Wait, comments. There we go. All right, let's continue with the law of one.
Question 95.6.
Before he starts that, you can get that book anywhere online. It is now shipped worldwide. And thanks to, I think it was Reese, thanks to Reese, I do now know that my publisher finally got the ebook out there. So if you're interested in the book on audio, it is there for you to have on audio. If you wish to buy it, you can buy it on any device for like Kindle or whatever to read. But if you want to have it on audio, it is there on ebook. All you have to do is look that up. Look up The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways by Leonard O'Neill, and you can purchase it to listen. They finally got that up. It only took them like 6 to 8 months to finally get it up. Although I was unaware of it until Reese was the one who found it and then linked it to me. I was like, oh, wow, that's from my publisher. About time that's up. So I have no idea how long it's been available for people because I didn't have any communication with my publisher when the timeline was that they got that operational. Love my publisher, but they're a little slow in the uptake when it comes to communicating exactly when something goes live. I usually find out by finding it myself, or thanks to Reese, I find it out because somebody who is a friend of mine happens to go, hey, bro, I found your book and it's on audio. Really? Here, let me make sure that I'm getting money for that. And that somebody didn't just steal my book and put it on audio and they're charging people money for it because I'll sue them. But that's not the case. This actually came from my publisher. Okay, let's continue.
Questioner, I assume that you mean that we should put the salt only on the outer doorway sills and not on the inner doorway sills in the house. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. We cannot express the nature of salt and water and garlic with clarity enough to inform you as to the efficacy with which salt absorbs vibrations which have been requested to move into salt when salt has been given water. We cannot express the full magical nature of your water, nor can we express the lightness and attractiveness of the garlic cut to lower astral forms. The attractiveness is negative and no service to self-astral form will accept coexistence with the cut garlic. Therefore, we offer the suggestions. We also request carefully that the broom be clean and that the garlic be burned. The virginity of the broom is most efficacious.
Right, so there you go. There's an explanation as to, again, cannot reiterate to you or express to you how much water has the ability to act as a conduit for energy. The same with salt, the crystalline structures, the same with garlic, the same with the smoke of certain things like Palo Santo, sage, and the like, frankincense and myrrh, these different scents, patchouli, these different scents that are out there that you may or may not like the smell of, or the taste of, like the garlic, that actually do very good things. People don't realize just how intense magic is when it comes to those pathways and what you can do with them. That's stuff that most people, probably 85 to 90% of the population of the earth, just don't have any idea of the concept of the weight of just those listed by Ra here, the potentiation of energy in those items. Most people have no idea. All right, let's continue.
Question 95.7. Questioner, let me see if I have the scenario correctly in mind. I'll repeat my version of it. We would hang fresh cut garlic in the area of the wet bar and in the area of the bedroom that is adjacent to the kitchen area. We would salt all window sills and all outer wall door sills and then sprinkle blessed water from our fingers on the salted areas. We would then say the appropriate words to bid farewell to lower astrals. Those words I am not sure of. Would Ra comment on the scenario that I have stated? Answer: I am Ra. Your grasp of our suggestions is good. We note that the salt be poured in the straight line with no gaps. There are various ritual words of blessing and farewell to entities such as you are removing. We might suggest the following. When the salt is laid, you may repeat, "We praise the one creator which gave to salt the ability to enable those friends, to which we wish to bid farewell, to find a new home." As the water is sprinkled, you may say, "We give thanks to the one creator for the gift of water." Over it the creator moves its hand and stirs its will to be done. The hanging of the cut garlic may be accompanied by the words, "We praise the one creator for the gift of garlic and bless its ability to offer to those friends to whom we wish to bid farewell the arrow which points their way of egress." When the sweeping is done, you may say, "We praise the one creator and give thanksgiving for the spiritual cleanliness of this dwelling place." As the garlic is burned, you may say, "We give thanks to the one creator for the gift of spiritual cleanliness in our dwelling place and seal the departure of all those who have left by this exit by the consuming of this substance." Question 95.8. Questioner: Is there any place more appropriate than any other to hang the garlic in the room, for instance, over the windows or anything like that? I know that is supposed to be hung in the area of the bar, but I meant in the bedroom. Is there any more appropriate place than another? Answer: I am Ra. The windows and the doorways are most appropriate, and, in addition, we suggest the salting and sprinkling of any door which may lead elsewhere than out of the dwelling in order to afford to the entities the understanding that they are not desired elsewhere within the dwelling. Question 95.9. Questioner: I understand that the garlic is to be used at the bar area and the bedroom that is close to the kitchen and has an exit onto the carport. If I am correct, those are the only two places that it is to be used. This is correct, isn't it? Answer: I am Ra. This is correct. Question 95.10. Questioner: We would like to pick the most appropriate room for sanctifying for the Ra contact. Is there any room that would be most appropriate that Ra could name? Answer: I am Ra. When you have finished with your work, the dwelling shall be as a virgin dwelling in the magical sense. You may choose the portion of the dwelling that seems appropriate, and once having chosen it, you may then commence with the same sort of preparation of the place with which you have been familiar here in this dwelling place.
Yeah, so it's always good if you are creating a space that you're going to be working within to contain those energies in those spaces. So it's always good as a backup to set the borders of the room that you say are going to have your altar in to create even a circle to work within. And if you're not doing that in and of itself, you should then set up those boundaries, window seals, doors that lead to somewhere else, so that whatever energy that you're working with stays within that room, like Raul was saying there. And then releasing that energy at some point, if you're closing that place and you're moving your altar to a different room or whatever it is that you're doing, then you should then do the same. Or if you can do that, high magic wise, if you can do that with the mind and clear spaces and hold those spaces that you clear, you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it by astral projecting and walking a room or a house or a structure and setting up those same boundaries in the spiritual, the non-physical plane. But it's always good to do both. If you wouldn't even know, there's whenever you doubt, it's like with a computer. When in doubt, reboot. When in doubt, when it comes to workspaces and spiritual energies, you can never overdo anything. We teach people that with spell casting or whatever, you can never overdo anything. Even if you're obsessively an overdoer, you can never have too much protection. You can never, be too safe. So it's never too big of a deal. Some people might get obsessed and do a lot. That's not going to change anything. It's going to make it better and better. Do you see my point? So people that are very linear minded or or a little bit more compulsive when it comes to that, they do better with workspace and magic than people who are lackadaisical, because people who are lackadaisical would tend to not do enough and then cause problems. Do you see? I don't have to worry about that stuff because I'm all ego and I'm cool, so I don't have to do that. Do you see my point? So you can never do too much. You can't overdo it when it comes to, especially protection. You can never overdo it when it comes to protection for yourself, your workspace, your family, your friends, your vehicles, your house, your whatever it is, even your job. Should be that way. I used to teach that. We used to go and teach a class once a week where people would meet, at a shop, and we used to teach people how to cast spells in their daily life on things or themselves. And one of the things that got even the parishioners there and the other teachers' attention was when I said, when I park my car wherever I'm at in the world, going to a mall or a movie theater or anywhere for that matter, and I'm leaving my vehicle, I always cast a spell on it. And the spell that I cast on my vehicle is that it is, in fact, a sheriff's deputy vehicle. It's not a sheriff's deputy car, but it's owned by one. And people get near your vehicle, and that picks up the sense in them that this car is owned by a sheriff's deputy, or it's an undercover sheriff's deputy car. Don't touch it. So people would be far less, 99.99%, far less apt to break into your vehicle to steal things or try and steal the vehicle, because every ounce in their fiber of their bone says, this is a cop car. I'm going to get caught if I mess with it. So when I said that the first time at the meeting, when we were teaching people that, like, even the owner of the shop stopped, turned around and said, do you really do that every time? Every single time. And they were like, that is genius. I never thought of that. So you can never overdo things when it comes to safety ever.
Question 95.11. Questioner, I am assuming that the newly chosen place meets the parameters for the best contact with Ra on the exterior of the house, and I would like to ask Ra at this time if there are any suggestions with respect to the exterior of the house. Answer, I am Ra. The dwelling seems surrounded with the trees and fields of your countryside. This is acceptable. We suggest the general principle of preparing each part of your environment as it best suits each in the group with the beauty which each may feel to be appropriate. There is much of blessing in the gardening and the care of surroundings, for when this is accomplished in love of the creation, the second density flowers, plants, and small animals are aware of this service and return it. Question 95.12. Questioner, on one end of the house are 4 stalls that have been occupied by horses. Would it be appropriate or necessary to modify in any way the condition of that area, even though it is outside the living area? Answer, I am Ra. There has been no undesirable negative energy stored in this area. Therefore, it is acceptable if physically cleaned. Question 95.13. Questioner, is there any other comment about our new location that Ra could make? Answer, I am Ra. We are gratified that this query was offered to us, for there has been a concentration of negative thought patterns at a distance north to 10 degrees of north, approximately 45 of what you call yards, extending therefrom to all 4 directions in a rectangular but irregular shape. We ask that the garlic be strung approximately 60-70 feet beyond the far verge of this area, which is approximately 57 yards from the dwelling on a bearing north to 10 degrees of north. We suggest that the garlic be hung in the funnel so that the energies are drawn into the south small end of the funnel and introduced northward and away from the dwelling. The procedure of the hanging will be one for testing your ingenuity, but there are several ways to suspend the substance, and it is well to do so.
That's the end of part 1 of session 95. So we'll go to part 2 of session 95, September 2nd, 1982. Should start in a second, unless there's a commercial.
Question 95.14. Questioner, I envision a cardboard funnel approximately 3 feet in length and then a small cardboard of the same configuration inside of that funnel, the garlic placed between the 2 cardboard surfaces so that the garlic actually makes a funnel itself, held in place by the 2 cardboard cones. The smaller end of the cone would be toward the house and the larger end would be away from the house. I would also like to know that I am accurately aware of the position that we are talking about. Taking a specific point on the house, such as the front door, I suspect that the direction is up toward the road that leads out of the property. An exact measurement from the doorknob to the center of the area of negativity of which we speak would be helpful. Would Ra comment on that? Answer: I am Ra. We were working from the other side of the dwelling. However, the exact distance is not important due to the generalized nature of the astral leavings. The heading would be approximately 10 degrees east of north to 5 degrees east of north. This is not a heading in which absolute fastidiousness needs to be paramount. The yardage is approximately as given. As to the hanging of the garlic, it must be able to be blown by the wind. Therefore, the structure which was envisioned is less than optimal. We might suggest the stringing between two place posts on either side of the funnel of the strung clothes. Question 95.15. Questioner: would a wire framework such as chicken wire, which is a small inch square mesh or something like that shaped into a cone with the garlic attached to the cone with the small end toward the house and the open end away from the house strung between two poles be appropriate? Answer: I am Ra. That is appropriate. You see, in this case the center of the negativity is as described, but there will be a general cleansing of the dwelling and its acreage by this means. One action you might take in order to improve the efficacy of the cleansing of the environment is the walking of the perimeter with the open clove in hand, swinging the clove. No words need be said unless each wishes to silently or verbally speak those words given for garlic previously. Question 95.16. Questioner: is there any other thing that we can do to prepare this new place that Ra could mention at this time? Answer: I am Ra. There are no more specific suggestions for the specific location you contemplate. In general, the cleanliness is most helpful. The removal from the mind complex of those thoughts not of harmony is most helpful, and those practices which increase faith and will that the spirit may do its work are most helpful. Question 95.17. Questioner: after the suggestions are accomplished with respect to cleansing of the property, does Ra anticipate our contact with Ra will be as efficient there as in this particular place? Answer: I am Ra. All places in which this group dwells in love and thanksgiving are acceptable to us. Question 95.18. Questioner: thank you. A question has been asked which I will ask at this time. In processing the catalyst of dreams, is there a universal language of the unconscious mind which may be used to interpret dreams, or does each entity have a unique language in its own unconscious mind which it may use to interpret the meaning of dreams? Answer: I am Ra. There is what might be called a partial vocabulary of the dreams due to the common heritage of all mind, body, spirit complexes. Due to each entity's unique incarnational experiences, there is an overlay which grows to be a larger and larger proportion of the dream vocabulary as the entity gains experience. Question 95.19. Questioner: thank you. In the last session you indicated in the statement about the immature male meeting the immature female that the information exchanged was quite different with respect to what occurred because of the veil. Would you give an example of the information exchange prior to the veil for the same case? Answer: I am Ra. Given this same case, that is, the random red ray sexual arousal being activated and
Right. Reese said, I feel that all these things to do become overwhelming for me when trying to learn how to be in control. Yet, if it doesn't work for you, you have to realize that all of the stuff that is being talked about, even when it came to like teaching about prepping and those sort of things, those of us who are in the know, we tell people you have to tailor things for yourself. If certain things become overwhelming, then that means that you're not one of those people that are super linear in what you do. So you don't have to have 100 steps to do something. For instance, I think Reese, I think that I've had conversations I did with Cassie. She knows because her and I were both reading the same version of the Necronomicon. I don't remember when that was, a year or two ago now. We had the same version of it and we were reading it. And my biggest hang up with it was that the spells that they were casting, which go all the way back to the Mesopotamian scrolls. So we're talking, thousands of years ago, close to 10,000 years ago, these spells would take like a month to cast. Some of them 6 months to cast because you had to do certain things on each full moon. And that's just not something that today in the modern day, 10,000 years in the evolution of the human mind and genome, away from that time period would be conducive with trying to do something and take that long to do it. However, it doesn't take away from the reality of a spell that might take 6 months to cast being more intense than casting the same spell instantly. So that doesn't detract from that possibility in any way. It's just that the same is said for in the 1960s, so 60 years ago. In the 1960s, what people needed psychedelic drugs to achieve in a spiritual sense, in a sense of enlightenment, people are now doing through meditation with no drugs whatsoever. That doesn't take away from the fact that people are doing ayahuasca, DMT, psilocybin, and the like to DMT. I just said that twice. To do the same, aiding in that raising of your vibration and having that same experience. It still is something that you can do. I can achieve the same thing with THC, with smoking marijuana in very large doses, 105 parts per million, which is more than double what they sell you on the market now as a strong, a pot that you would be smoking. So I would do that and then jacked up that. So literally smoking a lot of that, THC level and getting that to a higher degree. But you can talk to Reese and he'll tell you at some point it just becomes moot. You're not going to get any higher from that. However, you can then meditate with that and get to a higher plane faster, but you don't have to have that necessarily. So here again is the example is that in the modern times now, we can meditate and achieve the same level of meditation for a very extended period of time that it took people 60 years ago, psychedelic drugs, to achieve, because they had a harder time spiritually being able to lift their vibration into that meditative state. However, when you go back in time with the monks from, say, 1,500 years ago, they were able to achieve that, especially like the Tibetan monks. But their practice is the sound away from people. Their practice is isolation, away from distraction of all regular humans and all of the distractions of everyday life. So they're putting themselves in a meditative state 24 hours a day without having all this interaction from the world trying to lower you in vibration. So they were sitting at a higher vibration in an average waking state that was at rest compared to the rest of the world. So you have to realize that, like, the spells they were casting 10,000 years ago took a lot longer than the same spells would take to cast today. So they're getting back to Reese and a long ways around getting back to Reese. Don't feel bad about that kind of stuff. If it's overwhelming to you, tailor it to your own, Reese, and find the place where you're comfortable in your space, knowing that you have protected it, knowing that you're in control of it, knowing that you are doing these things, and that you don't feel unsafe and you don't feel out of control. You don't have to do all of that stuff. It's like I tell people, when someone dies in your life, don't let other people tell you how you're supposed to react or how you're supposed to mourn for a person or for a passing of someone, because each individual person deals with it in their own way. The same goes for all rituals, all magic, all spirituality, all the meditations. You need to find what's comfortable for you and what works just the same for you. May not work for other people. So you have to learn that, right? Cassie said, what are you talking about here? Cassie said there's so much to learn in spirituality, and I'm like that too. You laugh out loud. I want to learn. Let me put it up on the screen for those of you who can have the benefit of reading that. Otherwise, I'll read it for those of you on the MP3 broadcast, right? So laugh out loud. I want to learn it all. What I've learned is to take what your intuition is drawing you to now and know that when you're ready, your higher self, the universe, will bring you back into the path without you feeling overwhelmed. Allow it naturally, brother. Right? All is good and all in good time. That's the truth of it. That's good advice from Cassie. because the truth of it is you have to, get in the habit, find yourself a routine that are small habits of how do I protect myself? How do I protect my habitat? And it doesn't have to be a long drawn out ritual. And it doesn't have to be, as long as it works and it's working for you and you're not in any danger or you don't have negative energy trying to bother you, then you don't have to do all that other stuff that's like the highfalutin, long, drawn out processes. You don't have to do it. If it doesn't work for you, Reese, don't do it, bro. Do what works for you, right? Joanne said, I got myself into the habit of doing my protection. It's now like brushing my teeth, right? You do it in normal times. Exactly. I do the same thing, right? You go through a routine. We have routines that we set for ourselves every single day. You get up at a certain time. If you're working, you always set your alarm. You get up at a certain time. You go to work at a certain time, whatever it is. So you do things like brush your teeth, take a shower, put on clothes. You have rituals that you do. And the best way of learning anything or doing something is to add it into that routine. If you want to go and you want to start exercising, you add it into your routine. You make it a part of your routine. Therefore, you'll do it. You'll be more apt to do it because it becomes part of the routine. The second it actually becomes part of the routine, your body and your physical psyche wants you to do it because it is now part of your routine. The same thing goes for protection spells, reflection spells, and the like. If you do it as part of your routine, I just do this because of that. Right? You do it. If you're a smoker, you know what I'm talking about. The cigarette becomes part of your routine. After you eat, you smoke. After you see a movie, you smoke. Before you see a movie, you smoke. During a commercial, you smoke. You set your life up according to that routine. The same thing goes for protection. If I go out in the world and I come home, reflect and protect myself to not bring that energy into my house. If I'm going to do a work in a circle or work in a room or do something, reflect and protect before, reflect and protect after. You get into a routine of doing that, it just becomes natural and you just do it automatically. Open a circle, close a circle. Open a protection, close a protection. You just do that because it becomes part of the routine, right? It's not about control, Cassie said. It's about letting go of control and allowing your higher selves, your guides, and the universe to guide you. Surrender is so important, like so with 3 zeros, with 3 O's. Absolutely. And once you surrender to yourself, surrender to your higher self, surrender to the universe itself, things just flow so much easier. The ebb and flow of everyday life in the universe becomes so easily maneuvered. If you're going down the river on a raft, you find that the second you allow the raft to do its thing and then just look out for the dangers and steer away from the rocks and keep yourself from smashing up on the shore or going over a waterfall, you're going to find that you're going to have a far better experience than trying to row the boat while it's trying to go downstream. Same thing is for the life itself. That you let it flow, follow the ebb and flow, protect yourself from those haphazards, protect yourselves from those dangers that might arise, and then decide how to deal with those as they arise and react to those dangers, and then move on. And you're going to find that you're going to have a lot more energy in life. You're going to have a lot more time in life because you're not fighting against life. You're not fighting against the universe, right? When you allow yourself, Cassie goes on to say, when you allow yourself the energy to guide you, it shows up, or someone shows up to teach you that things will just arrive. Then things will just arrive, right? Divine flow is amazing. Once you allow that to within you and allow that and go with the flow, you will find your life is completely different. It's if you're a sailor and you've ever been on a sailing craft, you know what I'm talking about. If you're sailing into the wind, you have to tack back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to make headway. The second you move and start heading into, away from the wind and start heading with the wind, your sails ignite, and then you just capture the wind and you just go and you're full speed ahead. Same thing happens in life. When you stop going against the flow of the universe and get in tune with the universe, get in tune with nature, and get in tune with your own body and your own self, then everything just runs on smoothly and you just keep going and you have unlimited resources, unlimited ideas, unlimited everything. It becomes infinity, right? All right, let's continue.
Both male and female, the communication would far more likely have been to the subject of the satisfying of that red ray sexual impulse. When this had occurred, other information such as the naming could be offered with clear perception. It is to be noted that the catalyst which may be processed by the pre-veil experience is insignificant compared to the catalyst offered to the thoroughly bemused male and female after the veil. The confusion which this situation, simplistic though it is, offers is representative of the efficiency of the enlargement of the catalytic processes occurring after the veiling. Question 95.20. Questioner: for the condition of meeting after the veiling process, either entity will choose, as a function of its previous biases or card 4, the experience and the way in which it will handle the situation with respect to polarity, therefore probably producing more catalyst for itself along the chosen path of polarization. Would Ra comment on this statement? Answer: I am Ra. This statement is correct.
Gotta love that. Still snarky, right? Without being negative, right? This statement is correct. Move on. Next question.
Question 95.21. Questioner: in card 4 in the last session we spoke of the shape of the skirt, and it has occurred to us that the skirt of the entity representing the archetype of the experience of the mind is extended to the left to indicate that other selves would not be able to get close to this entity if it had chosen the left-hand path. There will be a greater separation between it and other selves, whereas if it had chosen the right-hand path there will be much less of a separation. Would Ra comment on that observation? Answer: I am Ra. The student is perceptive.
Right. So correct. Right. If you're in service to others, you go down the right-hand path, you're going to be more in tune with those people. And if you're in service with self, you go down the left-hand path, you're going to be more in tune with those people.
Question 95.22. Questioner: and it seems that the square upon which the entity sits, which is almost totally black, is a representation of the material illusion, and the white cat is guarding the right-hand path, which is now separated in experience from the left. Would Ra comment on that observation? Answer: I am Ra. O student, your sight almost sees that which was intended. However, the polarities need no guardians. What, then, O student, needs the guard? Question 95.23. Questioner: what I meant to say was that the entity is guarded along the right-hand path, once it has chosen this path, from effects of the material illusion that are of the negative polarity. Would Ra comment on that?
Right. No, Reese, that's what I figured that you meant by that. Reese said by control, I meant knowing the structure or process to practice. No, that's my point. That is exactly my point. Take anything that anyone's teaching you, and I always tell people to round out yourself in everything, to learn from many people, right? Don't just learn one practice, whatever it is that you're trying to figure out. Learn what all the people, different people tend to say. And what you'll find is that there's always a common thing that is in that, and that is usually each one of those people have taken the process and they've refined it and made it their own. So it's the same in anything, Reese. So yeah, it literally becomes the same. Whatever it is that's out there, you got to make it your own. Just with anything in life, you just got to make it your own. But the same thing, like if a singer is learning a song, you can either sing it exactly the way the person sang it before you that you learned it from, or you learn a song and you like a certain version of it. You can sing it and sound like that person and sing it exactly that, or you can take that song that they sang and you can find your own personality in it. So you should do that with everything in life. So when someone says this is the way things are done, because a lot of people want pomp and circumstance about everything, and it's their linear people will tell you it's their way or the highway. They will always say that things have to be done a certain way, and that certain way is always theirs. So if you get two linear-minded people together, they might come to an agreement, but you're going to find that they don't do things exactly the same way, but they're going to do things, then they're going to consider their way the right way. So you have to learn from everything in life, and just learn from that and go, okay, that's a great guideline. When I'm learning a recipe or I'm cooking something from a recipe, and I don't think I ever, except for when I was in culinary school as a kid in high school in the culinary academy, I would cook exactly the way the recipe was because you were graded on that, and the teacher wanted to make sure that you understood how to follow a recipe. And then the teacher would actually teach you, eventually, you're going to read every recipe as a guideline. And then you're going to make it your own, but because of your own taste, spice to taste, right? So I always tell people in magic, spice to taste. I tell people that all the time. right? Learn what works for you best, not what works for somebody else. Because what works for me is not going to work for every single person on the face of the earth. Vice versa. It's just the way it is. So you got to learn that in everything. And don't let people tell you you're doing it wrong because you're not doing it their way. Because that's their way of doing it. Doesn't mean that it's right. It just means it's right for them. All right, let's continue.
Answer, I am Ra. This is an accurate perception of our intent, O student. We may note that the great cat guards in direct proportion to the purity of the manifestations of intention and the purity of inner work done along this path. Question 95.24. Questioner, from that statement I interpret the following. If the experience of the mind has sufficiently chosen the right-hand path, and as total purity is approached in the choosing of the right-hand path, then total imperviousness from the effect of the left-hand catalyst is also approached. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is exquisitely perceptive. The seeker which has purely chosen the service to others path shall certainly not have a variant apparent incarnational experience. There is no outward shelter in your illusion from the gusts, flurries, and blizzards of quick and cruel catalyst. However, to the pure, all that is encountered speaks of the love and the light of the one infinite creator. The cruelest blow is seen with an ambience of challenges offered and opportunities to come. Thusly, the great pitch of light is held high above such an one so that all interpretation may be seen to be protected by light. Question 95.25. Questioner, I have often wondered about the action of random and programmed catalyst with respect to the entity with the very strong positive or negative polarization. Would either polarity be free to a great extent from random catalysts such as great natural catastrophes or warfare or something like that which generates a lot of random catalyst in the physical vicinity of a highly polarized entity? Does this great cat, then, have an effect on such random catalyst on the right-hand path? Answer, I am Ra. In two circumstances this is so. Firstly, if there has been the pre-incarnative choice that, for instance, one shall not take life in the service of the cultural group, events shall fall in a protective manner. Secondly, if any entity is able to dwell completely in unity, the only harm that may occur to it is the changing of the outward physical, yellow ray vehicle into the more light-filled mind, body, spirit complex as vehicle by the process of death. All other suffering and pain is as nothing to one such as this. We may note that this perfect configuration of the mind, body, and spirit complexes, while within the third density vehicle, is extraordinarily rare. Question 95.26. Questioner, am I to understand, then, that there is no protection at all if the experience of the mind has chosen the left-hand path and that path is traveled? All random catalyst may affect the negatively polarized individual as a function of the statistical nature of the random catalyst. Is this correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. You may note some of those of your peoples which, at this space-time nexus, seek places of survival. This is due to the lack of protection when service to self is invoked. Question 95.27. Questioner, the possibility of the legs of the entity of Carb 4 being at right angles was linked with the Tesseract asterisk, mentioned in a much earlier session by Ra, as the direction of transformation from space-time into time-space, and I was thinking that possibly it was also linked with the crux and zeta. Am I in any way correct in this observation?
Right before he answers that, right, Joanne said, that's why I love the violet flame, because you can get creative with it and it adapts it to the use the way you want. Do you see? So some things you can do that with. Silver is another one that you can do that with. And some crystals, you can do the same thing. You can adapt it to whatever it is that you want to use it for. So people use like pendulums for many different things, scrying and the like, many different things. You can do that with crystals where you can charge them silver. You can charge them in any way. You can almost charge almost anything with any kind of energy that you want to charge it with for specific things, and then to what degree that energy will stay with that item to continue, or you having to charge it. It's like charging a battery or like the batteries for your remote control. If you go by what the remote control says, the batteries will die and not work. But then if you understand how to charge those batteries, you can use your own energy, your own Reiki energy to charge those batteries and put them back in that remote and have them continue on until you drain and deplete those batteries even further. And you can do that a few times. You can do it quite a few times. I do that and I show people all the time and they're like, that's not a thing. And I'm like, here, let me see the batteries. And I'll charge them and hand them back. And they're like, those aren't chargeable batteries. I'm like, okay, then it shouldn't work, should it? Here, put them back in the remote and see if they still work. And then they do. And they're like, how long will they last? And I'm like, they could last a week. They could last another month. They could last a day. I said, but I'll keep them running. And usually you keep them running for another month or even longer after the remote has said that they're no longer any good. So you can charge that and put that in there. So you can give that energy over to pull it. You have to remember that you should never give your own energy over to anything. You should always pull in extra energy from the universe itself, from your guides, from your whatever that you're working with. That's why we always tell people to work with the quarters, call in the quarters, get that energy coming to you. And not use your own personal energy when you're working. It's bad enough if you're channeling that you have to do that. So you have to use that energy. You can still pull in energy to help you with that, but it's still going to be some part of you that's going to be taxing on you. That's why I always laugh and I tell everybody around the world, show me a magic user and I'll show you somebody who dyes their hair. Okay? Because anybody who's a magic user in any way, whether it's Reiki or otherwise, casting spells, you're going to burn energy through your body, in which case you're going to leach out the colors in the hair follicles in your body. That's just the side effect of transmuting energy, right? So, but you can charge energy and charge items with certain tasks, and they will hold that energy and hold that item and hold that task for you. And you just have to remember to charge it a little bit more and give it a little bit more energy to do that task again, and they'll hold on to it. With certain things like gold, a lot of people love gold. Gold absorbs energy and it doesn't give it back. It's hard to use gold to charge energy to and expend that energy. Gold likes to absorb energy. So people don't realize that, oh, I love gold and I put gold everywhere and I wear gold all the time. It's taking your energy and it's putting in there. You have to learn, you have to be able to use high magic to get the energy back out of gold. If you can, gold can be a very good tool. Silver is very quickly obedient to humans in that silver wants to please. Silver is more in service to others than gold is. Gold is more in service to self as an inanimate object. You guys out there in the world need to realize that stuff happens that way as well, right? Cassie said, fantastic. We can learn from others, but we also have to feel what our soul resonates with. Absolutely. Paulie said, my friend used to take the light bulbs out of and then put them back in, and that they would still work again. It depends on whether that filament's broken or not, or if it's just burnt. If the filament's just burnt and not broken and it's expanded, you can get it to work. If it actually breaks, it's a little harder to get it to reconnect, but you can do that. You just have to figure out how to do that. Then batteries are really easy that way to do that. You wouldn't be able to do enough to charge your cell phone to get it to turn back on, but you could get it a little bit. Like if your cell phone died and you're trying to get a signal for a quick call, if you know what you're doing, you can get that out of your cell phone as well. But, small things, simple things like a battery, the batteries that work remote controls, even though they're not chargeable batteries, you can charge them. You just have to convince the battery of it. And it's not hard to do. If you are a Reiki practitioner, you have the ability to do it already. You just don't know it. You just have to have somebody guide you into how to do that. Okay, let's continue here.
Answer, I am Ra. This shall be the last query of this working, as transferred energy wanes. The observation of the right angles and their transformational meaning is most perceptive, O student. Each of the images leading to the transformations of mind, body, and spirit, and ultimately to the great transformative choice is the increasing intensity of increasing articulation of concept. That is to say, each image in which you find this angle may increasingly be seen to be a more and more stridently calling voice of opportunity to use each resource, be it experiences you now observe or further images, for the grand work of the adept which builds towards transformation using the spirit's bountiful shuttle to intelligent infinity. Please ask any brief queries at this space-time. Asterisk tesseract. In speculative mathematics, a cube which has developed at least one additional dimension. Question 95.28. Questioner, is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Answer, I am Ra. We observe some small worsening of the distortions of the dorsal side. This is due to the nature of the beginning use of the swirling waters. The difficulties are physically accentuated as the swirling waters begin to aid the musculature surrounding the nexus of distortions. We encourage the swirling waters and note that complete immersion in them is somewhat more efficacious than the technique now used. We ask that the support group attempt to aid the instrument in remembering to preserve the physical energies and not expend them upon movements associated with the packing, as you call this activity, and the movement between geographical locations upon your sphere. The alignments are excellent. All is well. We leave you glorying in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the mighty peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
Right, so that's the end of part 2, session 95, the law of one. So in the second session 96, we'll go ahead and start that session, and we'll see how far we get with that tonight. So that was September 2nd, 1982, session number 95. So session number 96 will prime and start right after this
significantly changed their telomere length
skip here.
4 days.
We did pretty good getting that far and actually getting into that.
I am Ra.
Session 96, September 9th, 1982, part 1.
I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. We communicate now. Question 96.1. Questioner, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Answer, I am Ra. The physical energy deficit is significantly greater than the last asking. There has been substantive lessening also of the vital energies, although the perquisite degree of energy for mental emotional distortions of normalcy are yet available. Question 96.2. Questioner, could you tell me the cause of the lessening of the physical and vital energies? Answer, I am Ra. We found the need of examining the mental configurations of the instrument before framing an answer due to our reluctance to infringe upon its free will. Those concepts relating to the spiritual contemplation of personal catalyst have been appreciated by the entity, so we may proceed. This entity has an habitual attitude which is singular, that is, when there is some necessity for action, the entity is accustomed to analyzing the catalyst in terms of service and determining a course. There was a most unusual variation in this configuration of attitude when this instrument beheld the dwelling which is to be inhabited by this group. The instrument perceived those elementals and beings of astral character of which we have spoken. The instrument desired to be of service by achieving the domicile in question, but found its instincts reacting to the unwelcome presences. The division of mind configuration was increased by the continuing catalyst of lack of control. Had this entity been able to physically begin cleansing the dwelling, the, shall we say, opening would not have occurred. Although this entity attempted clear communication upon this matter, and although each in the support group did likewise, the amount of Blu-ray work necessary to uncover and grasp the nature of the catalyst was not effected. Therefore, there was an opening quite rare for this mind, body, spirit complex, and into this opening the one which greets you moved and performed what may be considered to be the most potent of its purely magical manifestations to this present nexus, as you know time. It is well that this instrument is not distorted towards what you may call hysteria, for the potential of this working was such that had the instrument allowed fear to become greater than the will to persevere when it could not breathe, each attempt at respiration would have been even more nearly impossible until the suffocation occurred which was desired by the one which greets you in its own way. Thus the entity would have passed from this incarnation. Question 96.3. Questioner, does this threat, shall I say, still exist, and, if so, is there something that we can do to alleviate it? Answer, I am Ra. This threat no longer exists, if you wish to phrase this greeting in this manner. The communication which was effected by the scribe and then by the questioner did close the opening and enable the instrument to begin assimilating the catalyst it had received. Question 96.4. Questioner, the instrument asks if the house which is to be our new location is capable of being transformed by painting and cleaning. We don't plan to put down all new carpets. Would cleaning the carpets that are there now be acceptable? I want to bring this particular house up to acceptable limits so that it is neutral after we do the salting. I have a concern only for the conditions for our work there. The physical location isn't that important. In fact, I don't consider that important at all. Could Ra comment on this? Answer: I am Ra. It is, of course, the preference of this group which is the only consideration in the situation for the contact with Ra. The domicile in question has already been offered a small amount of blessing by this group through its presence and, as we have previously stated, each of your days spent in love, harmony, and thanksgiving will continue transforming the dwelling. It is correct, as we have previously stated, that physical cleanliness is most important. Therefore, the effort shall be made to most thoroughly cleanse the dwelling. In this regard, it is to be noted that neither in the dwelling as a whole wherein you now reside or in the chamber of this working is there an absence of your dust, earth, and other detritus which is in toto called dirt. If the intention is to clean, as much as is physically possible, the location, the requirements for physical cleanliness are fulfilled. It is only when a lower astral entity has, shall we say, placed portions of itself in the so-called dirt that care should be taken to remove the sentient being. These instructions we have given. May we note that just as each entity strives in each moment to become more nearly one with the Creator but falls short, just so is physical spotlessness striven for but not achieved. In each case the purity of intention and thoroughness of manifestation are appreciated. The variance between the attempt and the goal is never noted and may be considered unimportant.
Right, so you just got to make sure that you clean everything. Always make sure that you're cleaning spaces that you're working in to make sure that you have that, unless you don't have a problem with energies, but you should always make sure that you try to keep everything in a way that will work for you. Again, you have to make it your own. Again, you have to realize your own potential and what you're liking and what is to your liking, right? In that, but there, when you're dealing with novices, you always want to explain everything to them so that they can figure out what to do. And if you get them in a routine of doing things, just like we do with kids, you want to get them to brush their teeth at certain times of the day. You get them used to that routine of doing that. You teach them those things, their determination, whether they do that or not when they're on their own. Once they start paying their own dental bill, they'll start realizing how important your teaching on the dentist, their dentistry and brushing their teeth and cleaning their teeth becomes when they have to pay for it. When they don't have to pay for things, kids take things for granted. So once they get out into life and they have to figure out how to pay to clean their clothes, all of a sudden it becomes important for them to have clean clothes. Then they have to figure out how to do that. And so they learn how to do washing. They learn how to cook. They learn how to take care of themselves. Even though you're trying to teach it to them, they're like, well, when I get out on my own, I don't have to do that because mom and dad made me do it. And then all of a sudden they realize that they have to do those certain things. And then they fall back on the training that they had. So it's always good to teach people good practices and then let them decide what they're going to do, because ultimately you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. All right, let's continue.
Question 96.5. Questioner: the sequence of events that I am considering is first the painting and then the cleaning, then the moving in of the furniture, then the salting and use of garlic. Is this as good as any other sequence, or would another sequence be better? Answer: I am Ra. Any sequence which results in the cleansing is acceptable. It is to be noted that the thresholds are not to be crossed during the cleansing.
Yeah, we become our worst enemy when it comes to confidence, right? Cassie said, very interesting that even Carla couldn't. Let me put it up on the screen for those of you who have the benefit of the MP4 file. You can read it yourself as well. Even Carla couldn't see that whatever the location or energy was there, that the energy could be easily changed if she just believed that their energy was strong or more powerful than anything there. So your confidence determines some of these things, and you don't realize what you can and can't accomplish. If you look at the Bible, where Jesus said, if you had just the faith of a tiny mustard seed, you could literally move mountains. So when teaching people that, I used to teach psychics when they were getting ready to go out on ghost hunting with a group of ghost hunters There was a time when there was no psychics on board on any of the people hunting ghosts, and 25, 30 years ago, and it used to drive some of us a little crazy, telling them you need to have a psychic on board if you really want to figure out what's going on with spirits, with entities. You need to bring a psychic and get used to that ideology. You'll have a better outcome if you do that. So once that started taking hold around the world, some of us were teaching people to be able to go out and do that. And one of the hardest things was to teach the psychics, you're stronger than they are. You're a badass. You're a warrior. You don't have to be afraid in any way of any spirit. They're disembodied. They don't have energy. They have to borrow it. That's why they take it from the tools that you guys bring, your cell phones and the equipment, because entities, even negatively charged ones, even evil ones, have to have the power. They're not alive. They're not capable of creating energy. You're alive. You have the ability to create that energy. So therefore, you have the ability over them. And you have to realize that you're more stronger than they are, that you're more powerful than they are, and that what you say goes. So when you walk into a room, you make it yours, and you tell that negative energy that you cannot stay here. You have to believe it. You have to know it. And you have to have that confidence. So it's getting people past that hump of the realization. The same thing goes in magic when you're teaching people. You teach them with tools in the beginning, and then eventually as you start moving them into a higher magic, you start taking away the tools and get them to realize they're the tool. They're the tool. They're the conduit. They're the tool. They're the magic itself. That is how they realize manifestation and moving forward. And you don't need all of the tools, but in the beginning you need the tools because you lack the confidence to believe in yourself. So we instill that by giving you confidence in tools. Then we start telling you that you're the actual tool, and we take those tools away from you, and then you start to learn to manifest things as the tool itself. And then eventually you don't need any of those. And then eventually you realize you're the actual magic itself that is being manifest, and that it is you. And that's the same thing in spirituality, and the realization of I'm not this pain body. I'm not the ego. I'm not the thinking mind. What am I then? I am the observer. And then when you go from the observer to learning that I am the higher self, not my higher self is, but I am, not she is or he is, but I, me. Once you do that, you're moving into that realm and that realization of that. Then you go from beyond that to a higher plane of existence, that I'm not just the higher self attached to the creator or the universe. I am the universe. I am the creator. I am all. I am everything. I am one. And people get really annoyed with that. How dare you say that you're God and things like that, and blasphemy. And some people will want to murder you because you said the name of God in a certain way. You said it in vain, or you drew a picture of God. Therefore, I have to kill you. That's akin to a Viking having to kill another Viking because one Viking said the other Viking's grandfather died of old age. It's no different than you drew a picture of God, you must die. You said God's name and you used it in a negative connotation. Death becomes you now. That's the children being afraid of the dark and saying that you have to have rules and you'll die with them. That's why Jesus said, when they told him that, Jesus, you're going against the law of Moses and saying that, and I'm going to have to kill you for it. He said, I am the law of Moses. I am one. God, when Moses said, Lord, who shall I say sent me? And he said, tell them I am sent you, right? They're going to want a name. Tell them I am. So once you realize that it is I, that it is me, that it is we, that it is us, that I am, we are, then that's when you realize. Same thing when it comes to individuality. Same thing comes to ghost hunting, spell casting, all of that. You have the ability. You have an immortal ability. The immortal ability that you have is the ability to create. You have the ability of creation, co-creation. That is an immortal ability. That means that it is forever. And it cannot go away. It cannot be taken from you. And that is the answer. That is the answer to the universe. Once you realize that, you come into your power and you realize who you are in the universe. That's your ascension. Let's continue.
Since such stricture upon use of the lemon may affect your considerations, we make note of this. Question 96.6. Questioner, was the unusual sound on the instrument's tape recorder that occurred while she was trying to record her singing a greeting from our fifth density negative associate? Answer, I am Ra. No. Rather, it was a greeting from a malfunctioning electronic machine. Question 96.7. Questioner, There was no catalyst for that machine to malfunction from any of the negative entities then. Is that right? It was only a function of the random malfunction of the machine. Am I correct? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 96.8.
Snarky Raw, am I correct? No. What was the origin of this malfunction?
Questioner, what was the origin of this malfunction? Answer, I am Ra. There are two difficulties with the machine. Firstly, this instrument has a strong effect upon electromagnetic and electronic machines and instruments, and likely, if continued use of these is desired, should request that another handle the machines. Also, there was some difficulty from physical interference due to the material you call tape catching upon adjoining, what you would call, buttons when the play button, as you call it, is depressed. Question 96.9. Questioner, how is Ra able to know all of this information? This is somewhat of an unimportant question, but it is just amazing to me that Ra is able to know all of these trivial things. What do you do? Move in time, space and inspect the problem or what? Answer, I am Ra. Your former supposition is correct. Your latter unintelligible to us. Question 96.10. Questioner, you mean that you move in time, space and inspect the situation to determine the problem. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is so.
That's the end of part 1, session 96, September 9, 1982.
Vitacost brings wellness to everyone. Just ask our customers.
And
Keeps me at the top of my game.
get that. There we go. All right. The next session, or the next part of the session, session 96, September 9, 1982, part 2, the Law of One.
Question 96.11. Questioner, was there a significance with respect to the hawk that landed the other day just outside the kitchen window? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. We may note that we find it interesting that queries offered to us are often already known. We assume that our confirmation is appreciated. Question 96.12. Questioner, this seems to be connected with the concept of the bird being messengers in the tarot, and this was a demonstration of this concept. I was wondering about the mechanics, you might say, of this type of message. I assumed that the hawk was a messenger, and I assumed that as I thought of the possible meaning of this with respect to our activities, I was in the state of free will, getting a message in the appearance of this very unusual bird. Unusual, I say, in that it came so close. I would be very interested to know the origin of the message. Would Ra comment on this, please? Answer, I am Ra. No.
Snarky Raw. Would Raw comment on this, please? No. Gotta love that. Snarky Raw.
Question 96.13. Questioner, I was afraid that you would say that. Am I correct in assuming that this is the same type of communication as depicted in card number 3 of the Catalyst of the Mind? Answer, I am Ra. We may not comment due to the law of confusion. There is an acceptable degree of confirmation of items known, but when the recognized subjective sigil asterisk is waved and the message not clear, then it is that we must remain silent. Asterisk sigil, a seal or signet, a mark or sign supposed to exercise occult power, less than L sigillum seal. Question.
I love the scientific description of a sigil. Yeah, that's a good scientific description of a sigil, but that's not a good description of a sigil. You guys could look that up and see what the definition is, but not a. I mean, it is a seal or a signet, right? It marks the sign of supposed. That's the very secular description. Supposed to exercise cult power. Yeah, not so much. But as a secularist, you know, I could see that Don would see that way, and Raw was giving Don the secular answer because Don's a very linear-minded nuclear physicist by background and by trade, so therefore a scientific mind that is very secular. So he's going to accept that more than he's going to accept the non-physical or the in any way astral or what otherwise. You know what I mean?
Question 96.14. Questioner, would Ra comment on the technique of blessing the water that we will use to sprinkle the salt? I assume that we just sprinkle the water directly off of our fingertips onto the line of salt.
Right, Joanne said, I had someone appalled because I said Jesus was within. Laugh out loud, right? So yeah, I mean, depends on what their upbringing was, whether they're a secularist or if they're an opposing religion. Again, going back to religions try to claim that each religion claims they're right and all other religions are wrong, and they teach that to their people, even if their people are in a theological college. You know what I mean? My brother being in a Christian theological college, he was being taught by them that the Hebrews don't even have a Bible; they have an apocrypha. And I'm like, weird, because your supposed Bible is based on the Hebrew apocrypha. And I said that to him, how does your teachers explain that? So if they have an apocrypha and it's not real, then your religion can't be real, because your religion is Christianity is based on the religion of Moses, the apocrypha of the Bible of the Hebrews, and what you call in the Christian pantheon, the Old Testament is in fact based on, and is supposed to be by the Christians, exactly the Hebrew Talmud. The Hebrews will tell you it's not accurate. Okay, so that's crazy that one religion is claiming another religion isn't real, but their religion is only in existence because of that religion, came out of that religion, evolved from that religion, right? So you have the same thing. Muslims do the same thing, and they'll be like, how dare you invoke Jesus? Because they believe that like everyone else, there is only one God. A lot of the religions believe in that, and so insert your favorite deity here is God's prophet. So therefore, people try to kill each other over the name of a prophet. Like there can only be one prophet. Well, according to each religion, there can only be one prophet because there can only be one religion. So you run into that a lot when you run into religious people. Then you run into people that I say to them, "Are you a spiritual being?" And they go, "I'm not religious." I didn't ask you if you were religious. Religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it. I asked you if you were spiritual. And that's where people don't notice the difference of what's going on, right? So yeah, and then when I remember when people would say you're a pagan, then you don't believe in God. Well, where do you get the idea that someone who is a different religion than yours doesn't believe in God? Well, you can't believe in God. You can't believe in God if you believe in this, right? That happens all the time. It happens to me all the time. I don't fault people for that. They just don't understand what's going on in the universe. You can't. You're a medium. You can't be a medium and be a minister. Those are opposing points of view. Really? Where did you hear that? Tell me which part of the Bible that came from, right? So yeah, people they don't understand their own theology. They think that they're a master of theology, and they start spouting stuff off, and they don't even realize that the religion that they're quoting is that the theology of the religion they're quoting doesn't coincide with their idea of what that religion is. They get an idea in their head and they think they know everything. People do that with everything. You know what I mean? So yeah, you just have to take stuff like that with a grain of salt. When someone gets offended because you mention a name of a deity that they don't agree with, they're going to always get mad at you, and it's your fault. How dare you bring up that name? I'm offended these days because of this movement that's going on around the world. You can't say a word. I mean, over here in America, peanut butter and jelly is racist. I'm not making that up. So to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and say you like peanut butter and jelly makes you hate black people in the United States. That, according to white people, who are the ones telling you that, by the way. Progressive white people are telling you that peanut butter and jelly is racist, and many other things is racist. Team names like the Cleveland Indians, they used a mascot. The Washington Redskins used a mascot of a Native American chief, and they were, people were going after them. These white progressives in this country were going after them and saying that there was cultural appropriation and that they were racist, and they needed to change the name, and everybody needed to boycott them. And the team gave in to that and changed the name to the Cleveland Guardians, for instance, and the Washington Redskins called themselves the Washington Commanders. And the Native American tribe and Native Americans nationwide got annoyed with them and said, we didn't say that was in any way offensive to us. We were actually being venerated by you guys showing that Native American face on your logo, that was bringing into the forefront knowledge of Native Americans and our culture to the rest of the world. And now you're taking that away. So as it turned out, those progressives who claim to be trying to include everyone and saying that people who follow that are in fact racist, they're the ones who were actually killing a culture and trying to nullify a culture by trying to have that removed. But because of that, the teams at this point are not going back to that. So you have that the very people, the Native Americans, now lobbying, trying to go to the team and get them to reinstate that as their name. Whether that'll happen or not is inconsequential to the fact that people are becoming awake enough to start realizing and thinking about that. So when it comes to spirituality, people always tend to look at things, and from their perspective, again, reality is not seen by anyone for what it is. Reality is seen through the eyes of who each individual is. And they believe they're right. Their version of reality is right. Ask them, they'll tell you. Some people don't, and they'll say, look, I'm not one who should be giving any kind of an answer to that because I'm not someone who is paid to learn that particular knowledge or thing. So I can't be a brain surgeon and tell you how to operate on someone's brain because I'm not qualified. But people will tend to do that and just say, I know that in religion it's this way because my pastor said so, because my religion I go to that I agree with is the one that says that you're wrong in what you do, right? So you have to look at things and right, Joanne's like, what? That's got to do with, what does that got to do with black people? So much politics. Literally they decided, Joanne, that in the United States, peanut butter and jelly sandwich is racist, that white people invented peanut butter and jelly to somehow hate on Africans in America. I'm not even kidding you. You can't make this up. You can't make up stuff like this. That's not even a joke at all in this country. When people would, they had the movement Black Lives Matter that's been around the world. When people were saying all lives matter, which you would think would be common knowledge, it would be common sense, not just Black Lives Matter, but all people matter, right? And so when people said that, they would say you're racist for saying that, because what you're doing is you're saying Black lives don't matter. No, Black lives do matter, but so do Asian lives, so do Native American lives, and so do Jewish lives, and so do German lives, and so do all life matters. Life itself matters. And people were attacking people who said that in this country. Well, that's ended now because that movement is almost dead in this country, because the people over here started going, those people are just canceling everything now. Like the LGBTQ plus community has 129 sexes in this country, and they're just adding stuff to it every other day. So people are now going, yeah, okay, cancel me, because I don't care about your craziness anymore. So the cancel culture is canceling itself, and that whole progressive ideology is going away pretty quickly because people are just like, that's silly. You're now making things up. Peanut butter and jelly is now racist. Fried chicken is now racist. So, Dr. Seuss is racist, and they're trying to remove Dr. Seuss from libraries, but they want to have XXX books in libraries. Weird, right? They want to teach the kids to cut off their weenie, but you can't say green eggs and ham, Sam I am. Right. So, explain that one to me. So, yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with anybody or anything. It has to do with cultural appropriation, or them trying to destroy the infrastructure of a culture by going after anything that's foundational to that culture. And peanut butter and jelly being a staple of poor people in the United States, that automatically makes it, you can't eat it because you're racist. You know what I mean? And don't even think about having a watermelon because, they used to say that black people eat watermelon. So therefore watermelon is racist, and you don't want to eat a watermelon either. So anything that is cheap for people that are poor is automatically racist. So they don't want you to eat it. So what does that tell you? Because then what does that leave you as a poor person? Well, now you got to spend a lot of money and eat the rich people's food. And do you see my point? Or whatever, or you're racist. So what they're doing is they're painting everybody as racist no matter what. You're racist by default. And if you don't like it, we're going to make it racist because we're going to make everything racist. So therefore you're a racist. Everybody's a racist. And, and then what happens is you say that name so many times that it takes away from racism in and of itself. Just like when they were saying Hitler and Nazi, you say it often enough and then Hitler doesn't mean anything, and neither does a Nazi. So the atrocities that they perform become moot because no one cares anymore because they heard the word Hitler 10,000 times a day. They heard the word, Nazi 10,000 times a day. And people go, I'm tired of hearing a Nazi. I don't want to hear about it anymore. It doesn't mean anything to me. Say a word often enough and it becomes less of a word. No matter what the word is, if you say murder enough times, murder becomes a word that doesn't even sound like it's dangerous. So therefore, you can destroy a thing by saying that thing over and over, and that's just what they're doing when it comes to that. It's crazy. It's stupid. Right? Let's get back on to the law of one. But you have to realize that the energy is there, and that the same thing with what I've shown here with the sigil and how that, one person's definition of sigil is another person's definition of nothing. You know what I mean? Let's continue.
How much water, in general, should be sprinkled on the salt? How wet should we get it? I would like to get this done right. Answer, I am Ra. The blessing of the water may be that one we have previously given, or it may be that one which is written within the liturgy of this instrument's distortion of the worship of the one Creator, or it may simply be obtained from what you call your Catholic Church in the form of holy water. The intention of blessing is the notable feature of blessed water. The water may be sprinkled not so that all salt is soaked, but so that a goodly portion has been dampened. This is not a physical working. The substances need to be seen in their ideal state so that water may be seen to be enabling the salt. Question 96.15. Questioner, I have planned to redraw the tarot cards omitting the extraneous additions by those who came after I, and I would like quickly to go through those things that I intend to eliminate from each card and ask Ra if there is anything else that should be eliminated to make the cards as they were before the astrological and other appendages were added. I would eliminate all of the letters from the edge of the card with the possible exception of the number of the card. That would be the case for all of the cards. In card number 1 I would eliminate the star, the wand in the magician's hand, and I understand that the sphere remains, but I am not really sure where it should be. Would Ra comment on that, please? Answer, I am Ra. Firstly, the elimination of letters is acceptable. Secondly, the elimination of stars is acceptable in all cases. Thirdly, the elimination of the wand is appropriate. Fourthly, the sphere may be seen to be held by the thumb and index and second finger. Fifthly, we would note that it is not possible to offer what you may call a pure deck, if you would use this term, of tarot, due to the fact that when these images were first drawn there was already distortion in various and sundry ways, mostly cultural. Sixthly, although it is good to view the images without the astrological additions, it is to be noted that the more general positions, phases, and characteristics of each concept complex are those which are significant. The removal of all distortions is unlikely and, to a great extent, unimportant. Question 96.16. Questioner, I didn't think that we could ever remove all distortions, but it is very difficult to work with or interpret these cards because of the quality of the drawing, and as we go through them we get a better idea of what some of these things are and how they should be drawn. I think that we can improve on the quality of the cards and also remove some of the extraneous material that is misleading. On the second card we should remove the letters and the stars. At the center of the female form here she is wearing something that looks something like a crux and zeta, and we should change that. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. We perceive an incomplete query. Please re-question. Question 96.17. Questioner, I think that I should put a crux and zeta in the place of this thing that looks a little like a crux and zeta on the front of the female.
Again, realize that crux and zeta is the Ankh. It's just the technical term for the Ankh.
Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. This is correct. Question 96.18. Questioner, then as to the thing that she wears on her head, that, I believe, is a bit confusing. What should it be shaped like? Answer, I am Ra. We shall allow the student to ponder this point. We note that although it is an astrologically based addition to the concept complex, it is not entirely unacceptable when viewed with a certain feeling. Therefore, we suggest, O student, that you choose whether to remove the crown or to name its meaning in such a way as to enhance the concept complex. Question 96.19. Questioner, Would Ra please give me any information possible on the ratios of dimensions and the shape of the crux and zeta as it should be made or drawn? Answer, I am Ra. No. Question 96.
No. Ra's being very snarky now. One word answers, and the next one he answers yes. Watch.
6.20. Questioner, in card number 3 we will remove all the letters and the stars, and I assume that the little cups around the outside of the rays representing the sun should be removed. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. Yes. Question 96.21. Questioner, in card number 4 we will remove all the letters and the stars, and it seems that again we have a situation of removing the wand and putting the sphere in the hand. Is that correct? Answer, I am Ra. Again, this is a matter of choice. Though astrological in nature, this particular scepter has possibilities of relevance in the originally intended concept complex. This instrument is experiencing some small lack of that distortion which you call proper breathing due to the experience of your near past, as you perceive it. Therefore, as this instrument has requested a substantial enough amount of transferred energy to be retained that it might effect a comfortable re-entry, we shall at this time ask for one more query after noting the following. We did not complete our statement upon the dimensions of the crux and zeta. It is given in many places. There are decisions to be made as to which drawing of this image is the appropriate one. We may, of course, suggest viewing the so-called Great Pyramid if the puzzle is desired. We do not wish to work this puzzle. It was designed in order that in its own time it be deciphered. In general, of course, this image has the meaning previously stated. Question 96.22. Questioner, is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or to improve the contact? Answer, I am Ra. Continue in harmony, communication, praise, and thanksgiving. We would note that this instrument's distortions would be lessened were it to refrain from the speaking to some extent for a diurnal period or perhaps 2 if the difficulty remains. We would also recommend against the activity such as running which would cause rapid respiration. This after effect of the greeting is not necessarily long-lasting. However, as this instrument has some blood vessels in the forward regions of the skull, that is, the integument covering the skull, which are greatly swollen at this time, and since this instrument has a distortion known as the streptococcal infection, it is best to be full of care for a short period in order that the distortions do not catapult the entity into longer-term after effects. All is well. We find the alignment satisfactory. I am Ra. I leave you in the love and light of the Infinite One. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai.
So you have to realize that, you have to take an account for aligning yourself and doing all of that, and they're trying to figure that out with, obviously with Carla. You always have to look at that and re-cleanse, realign yourself. Realize I end up with issues with the throat chakra. I've had issues, always had issues with my throat chakra because I had damage done to my vocal cords when I was younger. Almost lost my speaking voice altogether in life. Was lucky enough to the cyst that I had on my vocal cords that were actually pinching my vocal cords together, fusing them together, actually came off and didn't break my vocal cords. But because of that, I have this voice that I have now. And then I have a dead zone in my vocal cords where it skips over the scar tissue where the cyst was. So it literally, if I'm going up through the sound waves, so I had to look at that just with my voice alone. But you have to do that with everything in your life and your chakras. You have to constantly work at realigning yourself. And as you get older and things change in your life, you have to do those things as well. And realize who you are and who you're becoming. You're changing. So because you're changing, you have to change with who you are. As you're moving up in spirituality, you have to learn to progress past that and move into who you are becoming and not who you were before. You're ever changing. Therefore, you have to continue to ever change yourself. I guess I could take this off because we're going to quit for the day. So let me put myself up in full screen here so you guys can see me instead of looking at that. But you have to realize that, and here you can see that they were trying to figure out, they always do that. Dawn was very adamant about keeping Carla balanced, and what can we do to get the channel better? What can we do for her physically to attune better in a spiritual sense? And you have to learn that about yourself and evolve with yourself, evolve with your abilities. The greater your abilities become, the greater your abilities will be, but the better potential that you have, or the greater the potential. So therefore you have to evolve with that as well in your thinking, in your process, in your self-care. And you have to learn yourself. You have to learn who to call in when. You're going to change if you're becoming more in service to others. You have to learn to move into a higher plane of your existence. That's what you're supposed to be doing. So therefore your contacts are going to be different than they were before when you were a novice and just learning certain things. Again, you have to become the tool. Again, you have to become the one. Again, you have to start taking on those responsibilities in that realm of who you have become, or who you are becoming, or who you are in your beingness today. That should always evolve. So you have to reevaluate that at specific times. When do you reevaluate that? You can't reevaluate it moment to moment, but you have to at some point realize that you need to reevaluate who you are always. Who have I been? That's why we tell people journal, so that you can see the changes that you've made in yourself, in your own journey, whether it has to do with spirituality or not, whether it has to do with you just as a person trying to find self-help about yourself, to help yourself get past certain traumas that you have in your life. You journal who you are and what your thought processes are in the beginning, and then you look back on that as you're going through your developmental stages, as you're starting to change. You're going to realize that I have changed from who I was as the very beginning of being a survivor, no matter what it is. So in your spirituality, you should be doing the same thing. This is why we teach this, so that you constantly evolve. You have to evolve. And if you think that you don't have to evolve, the second you think that, you have lost. You are listening to your ego, you're believing your own hype, and you believe that you're done and that you are perfect and that you are the know-it-all. As soon as you do that, you're done. And you have to realize that. So you have to realize what people said, and Socrates said in history. The more you know, the more you realize that you don't know anything. You have to know that always. You are never done. You are never going to get to the end of the internet. You're never going to search everything in the universe. Try it. Sit there for the rest of your life running searches, and you're never going to get to the end of it and go, I've searched everything. You can lie and say that and tell yourself that you have, but there's not going to be a time when the internet's going to go, you've learned everything, even if you try and track it, because it's evolving. The internet is constantly evolving. Same thing is what's going on with you and your mind, and your abilities are constantly evolving. So you have to realize that about yourself, and just continue to do these things and evolve in your life, and look for learning something new. Find something to learn every day. Find something that is new about yourself. Admit things to yourself. See yourself the way other people see you, not the way you see yourself. See yourself in other ways. Sorry, my camera's moving because the fan's on, and it's moving the camera slightly. So if you look, it looks like I'm having an earthquake behind me. It's not. It's just the fan is moving my laptop, and the camera's sitting there on top of the laptop instead of sitting on a book, so it's rocking in the wind. So you have to realize that about yourself. You have to realize that I am evolving. I am. There's that I am again. They try to teach you not to say that. If you listen to people, they're like, don't say I am. Don't do that. Because that's, whatever. That's prejudice. You're a racist if you say I am. You're evil if you say I am. They're even teaching now on the internet, that watching videos where they're telling you that the devil, why is the devil telling you? Let me tell you why the devil claims that Jesus was a person and was actually married to Mary Magdalene and had children. The church is responsible for that, because what Dan Brown wrote about it in his book, The Da Vinci Code, which became the movie, The Da Vinci Code. The church cannot have Jesus being anything besides a God, because if he is a man and he had children, then people aren't going to listen to the church. They're going to listen to Jesus's offspring. So therefore, if the church is aware that Jesus actually had children, they have to say that he's not a child, that he's not a man, that he's not human, that he is a God. The Trinity only works, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, if you say that God had a voice and the voice of God was Jesus. Therefore, if you're the voice of God, then you must be God because you're actually God's voice. Therefore, you're God. That's what they did for the Trinity of Jesus. Even in the in nomine Patri Filii Spiritus Sancti, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Trinity. Jesus had to be elevated away from being a human because if Mary was married to Jesus and had children, then who are they going to listen to? Who are the people going to listen to? If you find that out, people are going to say, go and find his children. Tell us what your father told us. Go and find his wife. Tell us what your father told us. And therefore, we'll listen to you. You're not going to listen to the Pope in Rome because he's not actually Jesus or a descendant of Jesus. Therefore, Jesus' seed has to die so that the church can still exist and keep its power. So they do that with everything. They do that, and then they try to convince you of everything and that it's wrong because they're trying to convince you that religion in and of itself. Today, they're saying that the devil is the one that created that. They're also saying that the Anunnaki, which doesn't even exist, by the way, they're saying that the Anunnaki is now responsible for every religion and spiritual practice on the face of the earth. That just became a thing in the last 8 months. The Anunnaki created all religions. There were no religions on earth, and the Anunnaki are your slave masters, and they created all religions so that you would have something to worship, so therefore you wouldn't realize what's really going on in the universe. So they're teaching you, your slave masters, first of all, you're a slave. Secondly, those masters created all religions all throughout all of time to dupe you into believing that. So all religion is fake. Don't listen to any of it. There's no such thing as spiritual practice. All there is you're a slave and we're in charge of you. Do you see what they're doing? So they do that in everything, and they convince you that everything is wrong. Peanut butter and jelly means you hate black people. Eating fried chicken means you hate black people. Do you see? So then if you want people not to be in your country illegally, you're a racist against brown people if you're in the United States or Canada, right? So what they're doing is they're just tearing at the fabric of everything. All little boys need to chop their pee-pee off. All little girls need to chop off their breasts and take their uterus out and have a penis inserted. Because nobody's normal. All the little boys are supposed to be little girls, and all little girls are supposed to be little boys. Therefore, you're destroying the fabric of the society itself in every way, on every level. So that's literally what you hear from all scripture when they say be careful of things in the future, where they're going to say, the false prophets, be aware of false prophets. That in and of itself is a false prophet. It's falsely prophetic. And what they're doing is they're setting that up so they can point at anyone and say, false prophet, false prophet. If that person is saying what Jesus said, false prophet. That person's not Jesus, so therefore a false prophet. And then you have people telling you that Jesus didn't even exist. So the devil created Jesus now. The devil also said that Jesus was married to Mary Magdalene. Never mind the fact that in the Hebrew religion, 2,000 years ago, for Jesus to have had the title rabbi, which means teacher, and to teach in a synagogue, he had to have been married, and he had to have had children, or his wife had to have been pregnant. Yet, and you can ask the Hebrews that, it's still part of their religion. Yet, he was called the rabbi, and he had followers, and they let him teach in the synagogue. Well, maybe they didn't do that, really, because they wanted to kill Jesus because he was teaching on the Shabbat, on the Sabbath. So if that's the case, that means they were okay with him teaching, but not okay for him to be teaching in the temple on the Sabbath. So that means that he had to have had the title rabbi, or he wouldn't have been teaching. So by the religion in and of itself at the time, Jesus had to have been married. They don't want you to believe that, and they don't want you to even know that. So therefore, Jesus wasn't married, couldn't have been married. He was created by the Romans altogether to control people. Again, now it's Jesus wasn't created by someone. Jesus was not married. He was not a human. Even if he was, and there's the weird thing. They'll have you believe he's a god, but they don't want you to believe that he was married. And then if you believe he was married, then they say, no, he was created by the Romans. So you see? So they have an answer for everything where they're constantly throwing that at you to destroy the fabric of all religions. Every religion destroys the fabric of the other one. Every part of the secular life destroys every part of your life, no matter what it is, no matter what your origin is. They're going to call you a racist in some way. You hate people in some way. All of that is the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders, which is what Ra is trying to warn everybody about, the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders and how they take over a population. They tell you that everything, every up is down and every down is up. Every left is right and every right is left. And all of that's fake because we made it all up, because we only came here to get minerals and you were what we created. And you're a slave and you were a slave and you're still a slave. So shut up, slave, and do what we tell you to do. That's exactly what they're doing all over the world right now. It's worse than it's ever been. Why? Because they're desperate and they're trying to get everybody to go back to sleep because too many people are waking up and realizing that enlightenment, true enlightenment, is universal, which means that everyone gains the same knowledge. When you're in service to others or you're in service to self, you gain that book of knowledge on those sides, self-serving or in service to others, and everyone gains the same thing. This is what Ra's trying to teach, and Ra's trying to tell you guys this. Not just Ra. If you look at all these people, these Christs throughout time, these saviors, these characters who were prophets of the Creator, and throughout time, they're all teaching you the same thing. When they were here, the words that came out of their mouth and the practice that they were teaching you was all the same. Then when they disappeared or died, people after them created a religion and told people how to worship that thing or that saying or that way. And then they created more laws. Moses came down from the mountain with 10 laws from God, and the Hebrews made 6,000 out of it. Okay, so who did that? Humans. Humans made 6,000 laws out of the 10 that Moses got from the Creator of the universe. Do you see? So that's what happens. And that's why even in Christianity, that's why Jesus said, I am the law of Moses, right? Because we all are the law of Moses. It's a practice. It's a way of life. And that's why Jesus said, the way to heaven is through me. And I quote Jesus. And so people get mad at me because I quote Jesus and they say, you're trying to sell Christianity. No, I'm not. I'm not trying to recruit you for a church. I'm trying to show you things. And I quote other people from other religions. I'm trying to show you the spiritual practice in the world. I quote many different spiritual practices, almost every single one, because they're all teaching the same thing. You have to realize that and find your comfort zone, and don't listen to other people when they say you can't draw a picture of God or we'll kill you. You can't say God's name or we'll kill you. You know, the same people who tell you can't cut your hair will tell you that it's okay to get a tattoo. Same people who tell you that you can't get a tattoo are the same ones who tell you it's okay to cut your hair. So that those both were in the Bible saying you're not supposed to cut your hair or get tattoos. Yet you have people with short hair telling you can't get a tattoo because it's an affront to God, and they cut their hair. They just came back from the barber with their hair cut, and they're preaching that to you. So they're handpicking what they believe in their own religion and their own spiritual practice, and they're telling you these things. And that's what gives all spiritual practices a bad name, because the religions take that stuff and they turn it into craziness. And then they say things like Black Lives Matter, not all lives matter. And then if you say all life matters, then somehow you're racist, and that you hate somebody for saying that. How can you hate somebody by saying all life matters? How can that be you hate a life when you say that? I don't. Eating peanut butter and jelly makes you racist. Weirdly, because peanut butter was created by an African American by the name of George Washington Carver. He was the one who created peanut butter. So how is peanut butter racist now? When a black man did, no, he wasn't a real black man. He was a fake black man. He was only black in skin, and he was one of them Uncle Toms. That's how they get around that. That's how they call that. So he wasn't even really black. He just took peanuts and crushed it up and said, this is actually pretty good when you do this. And then other people said, this is a good idea. And he started selling it. Okay. An African-American man who was an actual slave who became freed he was growing peanuts, and he made peanut butter out of it. Now it's an icon worldwide. Okay. George Washington Carver, look it up. Somehow peanut butter is racist because somebody took peanut butter and then jam from the Europe and said, if you put the two of these together, it's actually really good. Oh, it was white people that did that, so therefore they're racist. You see my point? All of that's just to confuse you. All of that's to control you. All of that is part of the modus operandi of the Orion Crusaders. Okay, guys, it's 6 p.m. I love you guys. 6 p.m. here on the West Coast. I love you. I will see you guys in the chat. I will see you guys on the Zoom. Hopefully I'll be on the Zoom next week. I don't have a birthday party that I'm aware of happening on the day, so I should be back for the Zoom call. Again, I wanted to mention that you guys did a great job. I see you guys were doing a Zoom call without me, and you guys have been doing calls on the Law of One chat where you guys have been getting on there and talking to one another at different times. I love that you guys are doing that. I love whoever it is that's stepping up and doing that and starting those calls. I love you guys for doing that. because you guys are doing that and you're talking to one another and you're hanging out and you're having a good time. I don't even know what you're talking about there. I just know that you're doing it. Literally today, I was at the store with Brooke and I looked down at my phone. I was looking up notes for what we were getting, and she had a list. I had a list of things that we wanted to get. And I said, look, they got a call going on the chat. A Law of One. Good for them. Rock on. I wasn't going to hop on it. I was in the middle of the store. But I wanted to see that. I wanted to note that to you guys. I love that you're doing that. I love that you're talking to one another. If you guys are out there or listening and you're not in the Law of One class chat and you want to be a part of conversations that go on after hours when the Law of One is not on the air, and the Zoom call, which is not recorded and not live on the air, where you can have conversations and ask questions and talk to people, and these other calls that are doing the same thing in the Law of One class chat, contact one of us that are in that, myself, Cassie, one of the people that are in that, Brooke, even Joanne, I think can do that. If not, Penny, if not you, they can get a hold of us, those of us who are admins, Peter Coyle, if he's still here, Jacqueline, if she's around, we'll put you in there. You guys can come in and have conversations and ask crazy questions about crazy things, and nobody's going to make fun of you. Nobody's going to judge you. All right, guys, I love you. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. We'll see you guys next time.